Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals Public Review Session for October 19th, the 10 a.m. session. No public testimony will be allowed during this review session. The following items are being adjourned. 19502BZ, 2797 Linden Boulevard, Brooklyn. 2019-68A, 235 Industrial Loop, Staten Island. 2019-195A, 191 Industrial Loop, Staten Island. 2019-171BZ, 1610 East Chester Road, the Bronx. 2019-263BZ, 2122 Richmond Avenue, Staten Island. 2018-124BZ, 2130 Broadway and Amsterdam Avenue, that is a postponement. And 76456BZ, 200-05 Horace Harding Expressway, Queens. The following items are decisions. 19313BZ, 4770 White Plains Road, the Bronx. The applicant has requested a deferral of the decision. Item number 9, 2019-19A, 107 Manet Avenue, Staten Island. The applicant has requested a deferral of the decision. They're waiting approval of the final internal water main from DEP. Item number 10, 2019-191BZ, 1485 East 21st Street, Brooklyn.
Okay, there were no submissions on this one, so ready to a motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Item number 11, 2020-18BZ, 920 Shore Boulevard, Brooklyn.
Okay, again, no submissions were requested or permitted on this one, and we didn't get a request to withdraw. I'd like to, on this one, and I'll listen to other commissioners' comments on it, I'd like to make a motion to, well, it's a motion to grant, which I would vote against, but I would like to make a, I don't know if that's possible, something where you grant with prejudice. I mean, where you deny with prejudice so that they don't come back. I don't know if it's a technical possibility. Maybe our council could weigh in on that.
I think that any denial would definitely be with prejudice. And obviously for denial, the resolution will specify the board's reasons for denying the application.
Okay. All right, thanks. So then I would make a motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter,
No.
Vice Chair Chanda,
No.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
No.
Commissioner Sheta,
No.
Commissioner Shabeta.
No.
This application has been denied. Item number 12, 2019-82A, 430 St. Mark's Place, Staten Island.
Again, no submissions were required on this. I'd like to make a motion to grant, and there were no conditions.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Item number 13, 2020, 46A, 1214 East 48th Street, Manhattan.
Okay. No submissions were required on this one, and there are no conditions, so I'd like to make a motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta. Commissioner
Aye.
Shabeta,
Aye.
application is granted. The next item is a special order calendar continued hearing items. Item number 14, 12295BZ, 15265 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens. This is still a review session.
Okay. I have to say I had a a little trouble understanding the submission, or sort of the approach of the submission. The landscaping plan shows the retention of the chain link fence, and I don't actually know whose fence that is. I assumed it was the fence of the subject property. And so retaining the chain link fence and then adding a new acoustical fence like 5 feet away from it on the inside of the property, between which is proposed to install landscaping. So effectively, the landscaping would be invisible to the adjacent property owner. And in addition to which, very difficult to maintain because you can't physically get your body in there very easily. And it's also proposed to be landscaped with unspecified number and spacing of ground cover and trees in a planting bed that's 5 feet out to out without any details for the planting bed. So what I could tell from the photographs is that the chain link fence is covered in basically it's ivy that's just overgrown. It's like in a kind of neglected situation. And what we were looking at was dense landscaping that would create a dense high buffer. And I don't think that the applicant is pursuing this in the spirit to which with which we had expected it to be pursued. We indicated that the landscaping should be significant and very tall to counter noisy 24-hour operations. And also, I listened to the video, Mr. Wright, counsel for the applicant, offered landscaping on 132nd Avenue, and that was not provided. And the curb cut on 132nd is still shown as open, and there was a direction to close it. And an open curb cut implies to me that eventually they'll just put a gate on 132nd to allow trucks to drive in that way. It's really clear to me that no landscape architect was engaged to prepare the landscaping plans. And I have to say, if this is a serious request to operate this business 24/7, the least the owner can do is have the work that's presented to us done by the proper professionals. When I listened to the video, I heard what I hadn't noted, Mr. Wright say that the architect working on the project is very talented. Well, you know, prove it to us, because the results that we're seeing don't show that, and don't show actually that there's really any care being taken to respond to our concerns about this operation. There's also still 18-foot high light poles, and I'd like to know what the reason for that is. We said at the last hearing that lighting should be placed on the building itself and on the acoustical wall below the height of the fence so that there's no chance that it's going to spill onto the adjacent properties. They didn't do that. And then there's this lumen diagram, which does not conform to the administrative notice. I doubt that it's field measurements, but I don't know. And so again, we don't have that information. And then I reiterate, the curb cut on 132nd Street has to be restored to a proper curb. And there was supposed to be a tech memo amended to address air quality and noise, which we didn't receive unless I missed it in the folder. So again, so the owner must attend this hearing. But I just don't really get it. There doesn't seem to be real seriousness about our direction. And if they're so serious about needing this 24-hour operation, they better be more responsive, or the next hearing, I would just make a motion to deny it. Also, we had asked for photographs of the planted area, that funny little square in the back, and I don't think we got that, to see what the condition of that planted area was. I don't think we got that. So Vice Chair Shanda.
Thank you. So I have a lot of comments on it. First of all, with regards to the light pole, again, I agree. I'm not sure why the height of the light pole needs to be 18 feet. It can be, it doesn't have to be much than the proposed acoustic wall. And also the diagram should include the street lights, light poles on the side. There are actually 5 or so light poles along this parking lot area. So those should be indicated, because that will also give us an idea where secondary lights is coming into the site, and the additional light that is being proposed, how that would, it's like doing the before and after kind of analysis. What is the light that falls on the site with just the street light and the proposed light? How much would it cover with it? So that way we know that there isn't overabundance of lighting. There is just enough lighting to provide security and visibility. I actually, I think a lot of the overgrowth on the fence is more from the result of the growth from the abutting properties that has grown over time and hung on to the fence. So I'm open to it, but I thought the 5-foot wide gap between the fence and the acoustical wall with planting, what it would do is it would actually ensure one thing. It would ensure better acoustical. It would allow less noise penetrate through the wall and then the planting and the fence that already has the overgrown elements. So I thought it would address the noise part of it. I share your concern as to would the 5-foot width space in between a wall and a fence be enough for a landscaper to go and maintain the site. And the applicant has to make sure that the wall does not, the wall facing the parking lot will not be damaged by any graffiti or any of those other things. So I'm open to it, but I felt that 5-foot buffer would add to more of a noise barrier in addition to the acoustic wall. I also think the applicant can add, as you mentioned, the curb cut on 132nd Street needs to be closed, and that would allow for an additional street tree right about where that curb cut is. So that should be provided. That would also add additional visual buffer from the street, in addition to landscaping along that frontage of 132nd Street. There are 2 sets of drawings that have been provided. I agree with you. The drawings are not giving that much information. We are asked for landscaping detail, and I think our project manager should give the applicant samples of documents that we ask for in terms of the details that we are asking for on the acoustic fence, on the acoustic wall, the light, the landscaping, all of those details the applicant needs to provide. And they are now in whatever information has been provided, they have been provided in 2 sets of drawings, and those need to be consolidated. Next submission should be 1 set of drawings with all the information built in. And they also need to provide an elevation with the acoustic wall. Right now, none of the elevations show the acoustic wall. So that needs to be provided. And the applicant needs to provide a section of the 5-foot wide landscaping area with the fence and the acoustic wall. Whatever decision we go through, they need to kind of provide those details that we asked for in the landscaping drawing. And the applicant did provide a tech memo, which did analyze the noise and the air quality with a 24/7 operation. The tech memo indicates there is no impact. Now, I just want to know if DOT or DEP, they have reviewed the tech memo and if they have any additional comments on it.
Sorry, what was the date of the tech memo submission?
I
didn't see it.
It was submitted on its date. It was submitted with the last submission on September 29 submission.
Oh.
It doesn't have a separate date on it, but the tech memo was submitted with the September 29 submission.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
It was my understanding that the fence would be closest to the residence and the acoustic wall behind that and closest to the business, correct?
Yes,
Okay,
Right.
so then all the landscaping would be visible to the residents.
yes.
I mean, I think that's a good idea. I definitely agree with you. We need more detail as to what's planted there. To me, 8-foot tall arbor vitae would be great. So that this way they don't even see the wall, if it could be as close together as possible and then filled in with some lower plants that'll kind of, fill in the bottom as the arbor vitae gets taller and the leaves start to get higher off the ground. That's what I would be agreeable to. And as for the lighting, did they explore since they have an 8-foot wall, did they explore along that lot line having lights that are somehow built into the wall? So that this way, any lighting that's closest to the residential is clearly going to be blocked by the wall if it's somehow set into the wall. That's a question I have. And I don't have any other comments.
Okay. Thanks. Commissioner Sheta?
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to be repetitive, but regarding the lighting is based on computer simulation. It's not field measurements. That's what I read in the submission. The other thing is the noise. I haven't seen any noise study. The only citation for the noise issue was the installation of the acoustical fence. Regarding the placement of the fence, whether it's better to be in the front or in the back, I would believe that placing the acoustical fence right at the property line would be more efficient, because noise is kind of like, the decibels are kind of logarithmic scale. So if you have, let's say you have 50 dB and it hits the acoustical barrier, it's gonna filter out something. The noise reduction rating for the acoustical is gonna take out something of that 50 dB. But when you put the, now for the scenario that they are providing right now, the entire sound wave, the full intensity of it will hit the acoustical and then filter out to the other side. So that they gonna lose the portion that's coming from the illumination, that's coming from the refraction, reflection, and that filtered wave is gonna be the full wave. But if they do the opposite, if they put the trees in the front and they put the acoustical fence on the back, so when the 50 dB hits, part of that will be eliminated because of the refraction things, and then the remaining will go to the acoustical fence, and then it's going to be filtered. So I believe it's more efficient to put the acoustical right at the property line. I understand that it might be better, like aesthetics wise, when you put the acoustical first, and then the neighbor is going to be able to see the landscaping. I'm not sure which way to go, but noise wise, I believe it's better to put the acoustical right at the property line.
So I wonder if, with respect to this, part of our problem is we don't have a noise consultant, and we don't have a landscape architect, and hence we don't have specialists who can actually respond to these concerns. For instance, the noise consultant might say, for example, what you say, and the landscape architect might say, whatever, they'll make some suggestion. Right at the moment, we're just kind of trying to design this in the air, and that's not what should be done. So I'd reiterate that if this client is serious about getting our approval to do this rather dicey thing, they need to make better effort. I see Commissioner Shanda's, Vice Chair Shanda's hand up. Just one second though, because I want to point out we have in a later hearing on the McDonald's, we have videos from a neighbor who's listening to the dumpsters being loaded onto the dumpster trucks and the crashing that you hear from that. That's what trucks sound like when they come in. They have all of these, like their brakes, the gearing systems, the air pressure and all of that on their gearing systems, the backup lights and beepers and so on. All of those noises are what needs to be overcome 24 hours a day, right? And in the case of that video that we received, you could hear it at 1 a.m, and it's, throws you out of bed. So I'm just imagining that house surrounded by 24 hours of noise, of that level, very high intensity noises. So I think that the usual approach that we have to acoustical separations wouldn't be enough in this case, because you're talking about so many trucks. You're talking about, and just an 8-foot high fence probably is inadequate, because this building next door is 2 or 3 stories, right? And the sound and the truck is producing the noise at an elevation. The trucks are tall, right? They're at least a story tall, if not more. So I really do think we need an acoustical engineer in on this, and to get some real serious studies. Vice Chair Shanda.
Yeah, I just,
Oh, go ahead. Finish. I'm sorry, Commissioner Shett.
yeah, I just want to mention something. When we started on this case, I was very opposing to truck operation in the parking lot. And I believe I did read in the initial submission that all the loading / unloading will be done from Rockaway Boulevard, from the street. But the hearing after that, after the initial one, I was surprised by talking about truck coming into the parking lot and loading and unloading. And I agree with you, Chair. If trucks get into that parking lot, I don't think an 8 feet tall, even solid fence, like noise proof, is gonna be enough, because simply the noise is gonna bridge over, and the fence is gonna be useless, most likely. At least for the higher floors, not for the ground floor, of course.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, so that was the thing, is at the next one, they said, well, we want to be able to use both loading docks. And we said, there's no way for us to regulate it. Like, they can say they won't use it, but then how can we regulate whether they use it? And then it becomes a nuisance forever. So, okay. Commissioner Shanda, go ahead.
Why don't let Commissioner Shibata finish, and then I will.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes. Okay. Sorry. Apologies
Thank you,
again.
Chair. So I think since the first hearing, we've all had 3 of the same issues, which were the lighting, the aesthetics, and the sound attenuation. I don't think that this last submission adequately addressed either of those for me. While I appreciate, with regard to the placement of the attenuation wall, I do appreciate Commissioner Shetta's position. I just think putting a wall on the property line, it might do more damage aesthetically by making it look more like a prison wall, as opposed to the type of residential environment that we're hoping to get here. And hopefully the attenuation goals can be met with the combination of that wall and those trees, if there's enough, which I think there should be. Frankly, I think there should be a real dedication to making this site be as small of an eyesore as possible. Those are my notes on this matter.
Yeah, and you used the word prison at the last hearing. So the theme of not having this house be located next to a prison is consistent and directly, definitely important in terms of environmental justice and fairness about this activity. I see Tracy came online. Tracy, have something you wanted to add?
Yes, the tech memo hasn't been reviewed yet by any agencies, just to confirm. So I was reviewing it just now, and I do think we would send it to DOT to confirm the assumptions, because DEP has been looking for that sort of review related to noise reviews as well, the mobile sources. So.
Okay. The mobile sources being, in this case, the trucks. I don't know if that's considered a mobile source. Is it?
Yes.
They come to the site, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and because it was just submitted on the 29th, so there hasn't been time for those agencies to review, is that correct?
Yes, well, I wasn't aware of the submission either, so that's part of it.
Yeah, it seems like, it seems like it might have gotten sort of buried in the general submission as opposed to with its own official title somehow. I don't know, because I missed it completely. So, and I looked, so Mr. Shanda was able to find it. Okay, thanks everybody.
Yeah,
So,
I think typically
Chair.
we have a separate SECRA folder or something like that. So it was not in a separate SECRA folder. It was part of the entire September 29 submission. But with regards to the wall, at the last hearing, the applicant had submitted, at the previous hearing, the applicant had submitted a proposal for a 14-foot high wall, acoustical wall, and we had kind of said the 14-foot high wall is too daunting, too onerous, abutting a residential. And in response to that, the applicant provided something that was more in keeping with the residential context and provided an 8-foot high. I wouldn't say the applicant has not been totally responsive. They are trying to find a sweet spot that would work for everybody. But I think at this point, the applicant should just reach in a landscape and a sound engineer to give them the proper direction. I think they have heard enough from us to know what we are looking for, and it will give us a better response in terms of how we address the height of the fence and the location of the planting.
Right. So yeah, it's true that they came with a 14-foot high wall before. I think, and again, listening to the video, what I was hearing from applicant's counsel was kind of trying to take us literally at every word. If we said something, then he just wanted to be able to say to his client, put up an 8-foot high fence and a 5-foot wide landscaped area, and that's the end of it, right? Without understanding that this is a technical and a design problem. And not something that this board can design like on the fly like this. This is why you need those technical people. So again, I very strongly hope that both the architect and the owner of this property attend this hearing. They were not able to last time. So I hope the applicant's counsel at least took that seriously and made sure that they can attend this time, because I feel like we've been at this too long without speaking to the source, and that's a problem. And I'm sympathetic to the need for a business like this to function, but not at the expense of the neighbors. So
I emailed
thank
the
you.
applicant to have the owner, if he can have the
Yes.
owner at the hearing this morning. Also,
Right.
Equity Environmental is joining in on the meeting.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, great.
Okay, next item, 4297 BZ, 9320 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
Okay. Yeah, we seem to be getting a lot of these piecemeal submissions, which I don't really get. So there were several submissions on this application, including duplicative ones. So one where it says attach please find and only half of the things are there. And then the next one says attach please find and the other half of the things are there. Those are incomplete submissions. It makes it difficult for us to know what we're supposed to be reading, right? So there were several submissions, and commissioners should be aware that of the September 30th submission and 2 separate submissions on October 9th. And then there was a submission on the street tree plan, which was submitted at our own request. It was just submitted yesterday and appears in submit this morning. So I don't know if people had a chance to see that. We needed proof of continuous use between 2018 and 2019. we were provided with a Google Map capture from July 2018 and October 2019. So I think that sounds sufficient. I found the submission actually a bit difficult to follow. There are promised photos and then no key to indicate where the photos were taken. Also, they were submitted piecemeal, so it's not really clear which photo relates to which subject. I asked if all the street trees are now installed, and in the last hearing, or rather I asked, yeah, and so that was the reason for the street tree submission that we just got. But the street tree plan that was submitted yesterday, with that, I'm still unclear about whether the trees shown in the red boxes are existing or proposed or half and half. I still wasn't really clear about the designations. On the ADA compliance claim about the location of the red box relative to the curb cut near the parking lot, the drawing should have been revised to show the claimed clearances. There's just a letter from an architect that says it complies, but I don't know, unless the drawings are incorrect, it can't comply. So I think the drawings are incorrect and they need to be revised. We are apparently waiting for landscaping and lighting shields to be installed and subsequent field lumen spread measurements. So again, that's an incomplete submission, but and we gave them more than 2 months to respond. We're apparently, I'm sorry, and then I'm wondering, is it sure that with cleaning out of the drains, which we were provided with information on, that the flooding issues have been resolved? I note that we've been in some pretty torrential rainstorms in the last few weeks, and so it would be easy enough to see whether there was still flooding. So those are my comments. Vice Chair Shanda?
I looked through the submissions and I would like the applicant to just show in the drawing the accessway along the red box. And I appreciate the applicant providing the drawing, though late, regarding the street tree, because looked at the photos of the street tree and it wasn't clear where those trees are located. So I had no other comments.
But you could understand which one is existing and which one isn't?
Well, they were from the previous drawings, there were empty tree pits.
Yeah,
that was there, and from the photographs also. So the photographs had been submitted. The problem was we did not know where that was keyed. It was keyed to the plan, and so that's why the keyed in plan at least shows the photos of the trees where they were, and there were 3 such missing ones, I believe, 3 or 4 of them. Actually 1, 2, 3, 5 of them. So we only got photos of 2 of them, so they could do better. With regards to the lighting, we still have an outstanding issue. So those are the only comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Otley-Brown?
You gave us the proof of continuous use that I was asking for in the form of the Google Street View photos for the past 4 years. So I was fine with that. And I still didn't get an answer about my signage, because it seems like there's 93 and 92 square feet of illuminated signage per frontage. Isn't there a 50 square foot max per frontage?
Yeah.
So they did not address that.
Oh,
Those are
sorry
mine.
about that.
Okay.
I missed that. Okay.
Yeah, I did too. Thank you for noticing that. Because we have another case where they're asking for an excess also of the 50 square foot.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Sheta? You're muted, Commissioner Sheta.
Sorry about that. My comments are included providing an ID plan, photo ID plan showing the number and locations of the trees, and like number the locations for the photos as well. I believe they provide, I saw the plan they provided with the locations for the trees. The other thing I would note that the lighting issue, what they said is, they said the manufacturer doesn't have any shields available. So this is kind of a postponed issue. It's gonna be continuing. The other thing regarding the trash enclosure, I thought I did read, and I'm not sure if I understood it right, but they said that the trash enclosure will be outside, that trash box will be outside until the pickup occur, and then they're gonna put it inside. And they said the pickup occurs 3 times a week. So just wanna make sure that it's not gonna stay outside for the entire day. And if the pickup time, let's say, happen at 2 p.m., I wouldn't leave it outside from the morning. I would just take it outside probably 15 minutes before, and then immediately after it's picked up, put it back in. So these are my comments.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. Commissioner Shabeta?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have anything further to add. I do have notes on whether or not all the violations have been cleared up. I know that, and I'm not sure, I didn't see whether or not that all the fines were paid.
Okay, I think they might have, unless I'm mixing it up with another one, they might have submitted to us a fine, a receipt showing a fine was paid. I think that was one of the things where it's like a random collection of things. And in there was one fine payment. Does that sound right?
I think so. And then there was the fire department's inspection.
Right.
I saw the fire department's inspection. I didn't see the fine payment, but I'm sure.
They submitted something on September 30th. Yes, they submitted a document called DOP payment.
Oh,
Like a printout.
Right.
Yeah, 2-page PDF.
thank you.
Yeah, so that's part of the problem with these multiple submissions, because you're reading one, you read the next, you read the next, you don't know what this one had to do with. I wish that applicants would stop doing these partial submissions. The reason we have submission deadlines is supposed to get your act together by the deadline, submit everything. And then it's true that our project managers review the submission, and if they see something missing, they request that that be submitted, but then the cover letter should say, I'm submitting these additional things at the request of the project manager, so that I'm not reading this thinking the applicant just is scattershot submitting, because otherwise we'd have to change our submission system and cut it off and not allow and just adjourn everything, and that's not the goal. So, okay.
I'm not sure why the PDF for. I'm not sure why the PDF for the payment is 2-page. They are 2 identical pages, same exact amount for the payment and same time and date. So I'm not sure if it was 1 payment needed to be done or 2 payments, and they just are confusing us and submitting 2 pages. I don't know.
And sometimes that's when when you make a PDF and the PDF replicator or whatever it is makes a mistake, but really that's the job of the applicant, to go through the submission and make sure we're not getting 2 sets of things, which we often get also. So, okay, thank you, everyone. Next one.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just with regards to the photos that were sent, these are 2 trees that are planted at the corner of, just to be clear, the way I figured out, they were at the corner of Astoria Boulevard and 94th Street. There were 2 corner trees that were planted.
Okay. But you figured it out though, based on looking at, a rock in the corner is the same rock in the other corners? Like, how do you figure it out?
Yeah, and then there was another one that was planted at the end of 93rd and Astoria. So yeah, I was basically matching with Google Street View and the photographs that were provided. You're right, it would have been faster for us to review if those were keyed in, but that's how I figured it out.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Tony, next one.
Item number 16, 5597 BZ, 7636 164th Street, Queens.
We received as requested proof of continuous use. I thought all of our comments were responded to. The only correction I would like them to make is that the landscaping plan A5 has less information about the landscaping than the plot plan A1. So please put the tree and shrub counts and identifications on A5. Otherwise, that's not really a landscaping plan. Vice Chair Shanda.
I appreciate everything the applicant has provided. However, I still remain concerned about the possible encroachment onto the city sidewalk. Given that the asphalt is not going to be removed immediately, it's going to take some time. I had at the last meeting suggested not only that in addition to the no parking and putting the wheel stop, couple of bollards along the end of the parking space, number 22, 14, 11, and 7, so that there wouldn't be any possibility of encroachment of additional cars being parked when people think that that asphalt parking asphalted area is part of the property and not part of the city sidewalk.
Okay. Well, one thing that we could do is we arguably could close this and then set a decision date far enough in the future for them to actually change the asphalt while it's still warm enough to do that, and then also put the bollards up.
We could. I just thought the asphalt would be more expensive to do immediately. And so I thought bollard would be a little bit more cost effective given the situation we are in, and we can have them put the bollards on, close, and vote with the condition that they remove the asphalt.
Okay. Okay. All right. Commissioner Otley Brown.
No comments.
Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
No additional comments. I want to thank them for the responsive submission. The site looks nice. Thank you.
Okay. And Commissioner Shabeta.
I was satisfied with the submission and I have no further comments.
Thanks. All right.
Item number 17, 12013 BZ, 1815 Forest Avenue, Staten Island. We're still in review session.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, this is Forest Avenue.
Yes.
Okay. All right. At the last hearing, our instructions to the owner were that we should not be receiving any complaints from neighbors between that hearing and this one. Instead, the opposite was the case. Videos were provided, many videos were provided by neighbors. And I'm just going to mention a few of them because there were many videos at many different times of the day and night. For example, at 10 p.m. and 11:20 p.m. on October 9th, the video revealed very loud dumpster truck crashing and loading. And the dumpsters are located right against the residential lots. And the trucks use these backup beepers. So to add sort of insult to injury, the crashing and loading late at night is loud, but because the dumpster enclosures are right up against the residential properties, it accentuates or exacerbates the problem. On September 22nd, a police complaint was filed at 6:47 a.m. regarding banging and loud noises, which I'm guessing again is the dumpster. I don't know. At 9 on September 15th at 8:20 p.m. there was a video again of dumpster crashing. At September 13 at 1 a.m. the menu board ordering video showed that the menu board was loud and clear, plus loud engine revving. On September 9th at 11:30 p.m., that was similar, and you could also hear music in the car. In short, disturbance and disruptions are occurring without stopping, and there's been no response from the business owners, apparently, in spite of the neighbors' attempts to reach out to them. At the hearing, we gave clear directions. If the owner has any hope of maintaining this drive-through at all, it would have to comply with our instructions. Instead, the drive-through hours weren't reduced at all until September 29th. So basically only a few days before this hearing. Meanwhile, it had been continuing all this time since the last hearing, and it was reduced only to 12 a.m. at that. So 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. Our direction had been 7 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., which they ignored. And we told the owners to install planting now according to a detailed planting system, but to first conduct noise tests to ensure that such planting would work. No noise or air quality testing was conducted as was instructed. No noise consultants were engaged to work out the issues. The trash enclosure continues to be proposed to remain adjacent to residences. The acoustical fence to be installed is significantly lower than the line of sight to the window from which the videos are taken. And the landscaping shows minimal effort to create a dense buffer, and no infield lighting measurements were taken. I am surprised actually by applicants' counsel's nonchalance about our direction, and I only hope it is the result of counsel's inability to persuade his client to do what they were instructed to do. The pandemic and impact on businesses notwithstanding, ownership's behavior and disregard for the board's directions and neighbors' complaints continues to be outrageous and unforgivable. This use is a nuisance. I am prepared today to vote, or let's say to close and then the next hearing vote, to deny the right to continue with this drive-through and to direct DOB and the police department, NYPD, to shut it down immediately. Owner must attend this hearing, and we'll see what other commissioners say. So, Vice Chair Shanda.
The applicant has provided details on the acoustic wall and with planting, and the plantings have been provided in a location that would further provide visual and acoustic buffer between the residents in the rear and the driveway. This application is before us because of the driveway. It's in the site is in a C zone where eating and drinking establishment is permitted as of right. And with or without the drive-through, that trash enclosure can remain as of right at its current location. So I have no other say on this matter other than saying that the acoustic wall would hopefully reduce some of the noise, but that trash enclosure can stay there as of right without the drive-through, and they do not have to change the location without the drive-through. So we can deny the drive-through, but the trash enclosure will remain where it is. So it doesn't quite result in the resolution that we are trying to achieve, and that is before us is with regards to the drive-through. So I am looking towards, with regards to this application, I'm looking at the measures the applicant is taking around the drive-through and how it's trying to reduce the amount of noise pollution that is coming through the drive-through and the lighting along with it. So I'm okay with the application that has been submitted.
But according to that philosophy, we wouldn't have any control over the lighting either. So
well, there is an amount of lighting that has been provided for drive-through. So typically, if the drive-through would have not been provided, the lighting would have been a lot less. But the trash enclosure location was there even before the drive-through was there.
Okay, Commissioner Otley Brown.
I think this is kind of an unfortunate case because I feel like the applicant is behind the curve in terms of making changes to this site to ensure that it will not disturb the neighbors. And as we keep going along, the issues seem to be snowballing, and it's harder and harder for the applicant to keep up with the various issues that are going on. I understand that the applicant is an independent operator, and therefore they have cash challenges that a national McDonald's does not have. But still in all, it is not to their benefit to show us a landscaping plan that looks as if there are plants side by side all the way across that would provide a dense buffer, and then show us photographs that show very teeny tiny bushes that are far apart. And even if they grow taller, it's going to take forever for them to grow to the height they would need to be to block anything. And there would still be too much space in between them. So I think that applicant's counsel has to be very clear in directing the applicant that you're going to have to spend money, and you're going to have to make radical changes here to ensure that the neighbors are not constantly disturbed by your 24-hour or even your late night drive-through activities. It's going to cost money, and the applicant's going to have to make a decision. Do I want to invest in this and spend the money to do this properly, or do I just want to dismantle my drive-through? That's a cost-benefit analysis that they have to do, but they need to do it fast, because the longer they wait, the angrier the neighbors get. The angrier the neighbors get, the more videos we get. The more videos we get, the more our attention is put towards these different issues. And it's just not going to help the applicant to keep stalling.
Well said, thank you. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the lighting, definitely the lighting luminous spread are not based on actual measurements. And I'm not sure why, especially if you look at the plan, you're gonna see that the plan describes the light pool as existing. If you look at the drawing BSA 006.01 in the legend, it describes all the light pools as existing. This is number one. Number two, there is a contradiction in that plan between the notes, the lighting notes, and the detail for the light pool itself. The light pool elevation says that the height of the light, the mounting height, is either 14 or 25. That gives the impression that you're gonna have two types of mounting. Some of the lights will be at 14, the others will be at 25, nothing else. But if you look at the legend under note 3, where it says fixture types, there are A through F, and the heights are 9, 21. There are one of them, F is at 9 feet, E is at 21, B is 21, B is 21, A is 10 feet. So for me, whoever prepare a drawing like this need to look at it and make sure that it's consistent. Regarding the light values, again, I believe these are based on computer modeling, and if these pictures are existing, I don't know why they cannot provide field measurements per hour administrative notice. This is for the lighting. In their submission, I saw that they are asking us to probably give him like a test period, and they are asking for 18 months. I believe for now, there is back and forth between neighbors and the owner, and probably if we can grant a short test period, not 18 months, I'm not even in favor of half of that. And after that test period, we can look at things, and if they remain like that, we can deny the request for the drive-through.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but we need to get to a place where we know that going forward, there's a chance it's going to work. Because at the moment, I feel like we're just more or less being ignored. Commissioner Shibeta?
Thank you, Chair. Frankly, I believe that once an applicant brings their case before the Board of Standards and Appeals, we have an obligation. We can't just ignore such a nuisance. And while it's an as-of-right use, and I understand that, I still think it is one of our obligations to ensure to ensure that such things don't continue. With regard to, and while I am sympathetic to this being a owner of a business and not part of the national, I would be more sympathetic if I saw the immediate responses to the board's direction and to the neighbors' complaints. Just changing your hours, a fortnight before the hearing doesn't make me feel like you're taking this direction seriously. I believe that these neighbors. First of all, I'm really glad that they're being they're giving us this information and being this dedicated to submitting these videos, because they're very telling. The owner needs to respond to this, and he needs to do so immediately. And I don't believe it's on the part of the council. I do believe that I think the owner has to, if they want to continue this use, they have to take some serious steps now, more than just promises.
Okay, and Commissioner Shanda, Vice Chair Shanda had her hand up.
One thing I forgot to mention that in the drawing sheet 004, which shows the sections, there are two sections CC indicated. Actually, one should be B and one should be C. The CC with the large 14-foot high white pine trees actually is section BB, and section CC with the 3-foot high shamrocks is CC. Because when you compare that to BSA 003 plan, you see all the high trees, the so-called 14-foot white pine trees are located along in the rear area that lines up with all the tall buildings, all the residentials in the back and along the driveway, parallel to the driveway. So that was the reason why I thought the placement of these tall trees to buffer the driveway seemed reasonable. And then where the driveway is not there, and is not visible, because there are neighbors' trees also that are very tall, so planting another tall tree next to the neighbor's tall tree would not gain anything. So it seemed reasonable. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Again, acoustical engineers do this work, so that's what we really should be having. Okay, I think we can move to the hearing. Yeah.
This concludes the public review session. Okay, so we're now commencing with the public hearing for October 19, 2020, 10 a.m. session. SOC calendar, continued hearing items, 122-95BZ, 152-65 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens.
Is this Mr. Leonidas and
This
Kevin
is
Williams?
Chris Wright is the applicant.
Right, but we have Leonidas and Mr. Leonidas and Kevin Williams in the room.
Yes,
see Chris.
both registered for this application.
Yeah, he said the owner, the architect, and the landscape architect are going to be in the room.
Okay, great. But I see two phone numbers. Is one of them Mr. Wright?
If you are here for the application, please press *9 to raise your hand so that you can be promoted to a panelist and speak. Again, if you're on the phone, please press *9 now if you would like to speak on this application, which is 122-95BZ.
Here we go.
All right.
State your name, please. The last 3 digits, 508.
You're currently muted. Please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. Who's speaking?
My name is Michael Fontaine. I'm the landscape architect for the project.
Okay.
Where's Mr. Wright?
I don't know. So we're waiting for counsel. Can one of you maybe text Mr. Wright? And also please turn off your YouTube video and mute yourself when you're not speaking.
All right, I just emailed him.
We have one person whose last 3 digits are 661 on the telephone. If you're wanting to speak on this case, please press *9 to raise your hand.
I believe that may be the owner of the McDonald's for 120-13BZ, according to our registration report.
Okay, so we still don't have Mr. Wright. So Tony, you're.
I
Texting him?
emailed Chris, yeah. He just emailed me, so I don't know if.
Maybe, do we
Phone
have a
number.
phone?
534 just called in. If you would like to speak on this application, 122-95BZ, please raise your hand by pressing *9.
There we go. Okay, good.
Okay, now that you're allowed to talk, please unmute and press *6 to do so.
Right. State your name and turn off your YouTube. There we go.
Hello?
State
Hello.
your name, please.
Yeah, this is Joseph Barbagallo.
For which case?
This is for 122-95BZ.
Is that the same case?
Yes.
You hear Horizon Air Freight? Yep.
Yeah, okay. We're waiting for Mr. Wright to join in. Does anyone have his phone number that we could have Kurt, Mr. Steinhaus, send him an invite?
I have his phone. I have his number here. It's 917.
Can you?
If you could email that to the project manager or to me, my email address is ksteinhaus@bsa.nyc.gov. That's KSTEINHOU. Mr. Wright just joined us.
Hello?
There he is. Yeah, hi.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
I'm sorry. The
I
Chris?
just lost him. We lost him again. Oh, there he is. All right.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
We can hear you. We cannot see you. We only see you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me, there we go.
okay.
Okay, sorry. For some reason, I got the invitation for tomorrow. You should have the owner. I sent the phone numbers in, the owner, the architect, and the
Yes.
landscape architect, and
Yeah.
the EA. On the
We
call.
have, Mr. Wright, we have Michael Fontaine, Joseph Barbigallo.
Barbagallo.
Barbigallo. Okay, I'll correct your spelling. And Mr. Kevin Williams.
Okay, let me just turn the volume up a bit here. I'm having trouble hearing you. Hold on. Okay, that's the architect, the land. Oh. Now where am I? Shoot.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
We
Now I
can-
can't see.
So, Mr. Barbigallo, could you spell your last name, please? I don't want to mess it up.
Certainly. It's BARBAGALLO.
Here. Hello?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so let me just try to explain our response. So
Wait, hold up, Chris, can you hold 1 second? Okay, so you have to all be sworn in.
Oh,
So can you unmute? Kevin, can you unmute, please? Mr. Williams, can you unmute? All right, whatever. All right, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond only to board member questions? Everyone, please. Say
yes,
aye.
I do.
Say aye.
I
Kevin?
do.
Thank you, Kevin. Please
Okay.
proceed.
Okay, let me just give you a little bit of detail to help maybe explain, maybe some things weren't clear in the submission exactly. With the last hearing, our original plan was a 14-foot high wall right on the property line. There was some concerns about that at the last hearing. So we tried a different approach, and one of the things our approach had to do with site conditions that we didn't know until after the last hearing. So let me try to explain, so maybe it's a little bit more clear. We looked at creating a 5-foot planting bed. We reduced the wall from 14 to 8 feet. We thought there was some support for that in the board. But then we went out there, and I sent pictures. We saw that there was a existing fence that wraps around the parking lot that seemed pretty landscaped, that seemed to be effective, that seemed to be working. And so if we pulled back the wall 5 feet, the question was, do we rip out this entire fence that's been there for 20 years, that has landscaping on it? We were a little concerned whether that was the right thing to do. And then the other issue was just sort of a liability issue. If we remove the fence and pull the wall back 5 feet, there's 5 feet of our property that we can't get to that the neighbors can. And so as a real estate lawyer, I just got a little concerned that maybe we shouldn't, have this 5-foot wall, 5-foot stretch open to their backyards and not really to us. I wasn't sure that made sense, but more importantly, and I sent about 12 pictures, it seemed to me the better approach was keep the fence there that has lots of landscaping on it, that has trees on it. And I sent pictures from both sides of the fence, including from the parking lot. You can see how the house is fairly covered with trees and landscaping. Pull back 5 feet, put up the noise mitigation wall, which would clearly be more mitigation. And then the wall, if you look at the plan, there's doors in the wall to get into that 5-foot area so that we can landscape that area. It may not be the perfect solution. And the landscape architect, we had a landscape architect prepare this plan. So I wanted to just make sure that was clear on the approach we used here. Really what we preferred was 14 feet on the property line, but that was our original proposal, but there seemed to be concerns about that. So we tried this alternative approach, and then there were some site conditions that I just laid out. So I want to just clarify why we came up with this particular plan. And then we redid the lumen diagram, based on the wall coming back 5 feet with 3 poles instead of 1. And Joe can explain that more because they were using light fixtures that have less light to them, and we have to light the parking lot. We also included the lights on the existing wall, and we did a lumen diagram, and I gave a letter to the board from the architect saying it was done by standards, but the architect's on the call, so he can explain it. So I know there's concerns the lumen diagram wasn't done by standards, but he wrote a letter, he signed and sealed it, he's on the call. So Joe's on the call, who can talk about the lumen diagram and talk about the lighting design he came up with. The architect is on, and Jim is on to talk about the EAS. But I wanted to just clarify why we came up with this plan.
We don't have a Jim. We have a Joseph, a Michael, a Kevin.
Kevin is the EAS. Kevin Williams and James Heineman, they work together. So I guess Kevin's on, not James. Okay, so it's either Kevin or James. And Michael is the landscape architect, and he can go through what he designed there. And we gave you, we gave a set of approved drawings, and then we gave some separate drawings, the lumen, the landscape, and the maneuvering plan, just to show this all still worked. But we can combine those into one. I just wanted to keep them separate so it was clear what we were trying to do here. I could talk about some other things like the curb cut and a few other things, but perhaps this discussion should really be about, the landscaping, the design we've given you, and how we can make this work.
Okay, so before we start on this, just to give some direction to the landscape architect, and I guess to the environmental consultant, who, I don't know, is Mr. Williams a noise consultant?
No, let me explain what we did here. Kevin Williams works for Environmental Equity with Jim Heineman. Yeah. Let me just back up a little bit, if I may. So there's a little bit of history here. The EAS was approved 20 years ago. And in that EAS 20 years ago had a sort of a detailed traffic study. because there was concerns about traffic impact. We submitted then, we hired Kevin's firm, he's the EAS consultant, and with Jim Heineman, and they submitted a tech memo on traffic impact 2 hearings ago, which showed that there was no impact that hit any threshold standards based on the amount of traffic, increase in traffic due to the operating at night. And then when Tracy said, why don't you upgrade your analysis to include noise quality and air, Kevin's firm produced the memo you have. I'm sorry if you missed it in the submission. It was in the submission, but I understand there was some trouble finding it. That looked at air quality and noise and said, based on the increase, and Kevin can do this in more detail than I can, that we found no impacts on traffic, air quality, or noise based on the nighttime activity as adjustments to the EAS that was done 20 years ago. And that's what we thought Tracy had asked for, which she can now send to DEP. So that's who Kevin is. So that's the history of the EAS work.
Okay, so let's just, so for the benefit of those specialist consultants, here's our issue. The proposal is to have this be a 24-hour operation with very large trucks, like semi-trailers, that are coming 24 hours a day adjacent to a residential use, immediately adjacent to a residential use. And to put it in sort of simple perspective, and you may have heard our comment session earlier, we have another case of a McDonald's, so it's not the same kind of a use at all, but that the residents who live in the house next door, so a similar relationship between that house next door and the house next door to this building, those residents submitted to us a video of a truck coming to pick up dumpsters in the middle of the night. And the sound from the truck is deafening. The crashing of the dumpsters, the backups beeping, the sound of the engine and all of that is deafening and wakes the people up in the middle of the night, right? And so the videos are very specific. So rather than having to guess what the sound is like, we actually have a video recording of what the sound would be like tenfold, because you've got 24-hour pickup and drop-offs and so on going on at that side of the parking lot adjacent to a residential use all night long. And so what we're trying to do is to say, if this use is to be permitted, the proposed 24-hour operation is to be permitted, we need sound analysis and an acoustical separation proposal, which includes both acoustical walls and landscaping, to ensure that the neighbors next door are not essentially rocked out of their beds by the vibration and noise that's caused by many trucks crashing in around that. And when I say crashing, it's the sound of banging and crashing that you hear, not to mention the air brakes and all of that happen with these very large trucks, right? So
right, it's large crisp sound, as I understand your point.
Yeah, exactly. Large, crisp sounds, but it's also the rumbling of the engines. I mean, you're around the truck, so you know what that is. And so we're not saying that you can't, we're not saying that this is not an option for you to do this, but we need to ensure, based on science, that the neighbors are not basically ejected from their homes by the nuisance ultimately that could occur from this use. So,
sorry.
No, let me just finish. So,
Sorry.
if we have another case, which I think we're going to discuss later this afternoon or tomorrow, where it was a gas station where they created this beautiful automotive repair station where they created this very large buffer zone. It was like actually 15 feet of buffer that created really great sound and visual barrier between the use that's commercial and aggressive and noxious, not to mention the fumes that we're talking about from these trucks, right? Between the residents next door and that use. And so every time I look at that case and I look at how that case handled it versus what's going on here, you know, which is a much more aggressive use, we have to come up with a solution that isn't only about only looking at the business, but has to imagine you live next door. So you have to treat this like your mom lives next door and she's not hard of hearing. And she is being woken up all night long and calling you to complain that the business, your business, is driving her crazy and her whatever, her tenant's crazy or something. Okay, so that's the context that we're in. Okay,
Right.
And then if we add another layer to that to pick up on the language that Commissioner Sciabetta uses, it can't look like this house is next door to a prison. So putting up this 14-foot high wall without some sort of visual barrier that softens it is also not okay. So that's where landscape architect is coming in, right? So that's the project.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we heard, and again, I want to thank everyone, all commissioners, the chair for your comments earlier. I listened to all of them, understood all of them. I do appreciate the jail-like scenario. I understand that 100%. But what we try to do here, of course, is we have certain spatial requirements that prohibit us from doing certain. From using certain elements on the property, so that we can, in an effort to mitigate the noise and the aesthetic of the separation between the commercial and the residential, we couldn't employ. So we have that. We're walking that balance of trying to do this remediation in a limited amount of space, and I understand the issue 100%. There is I understand about the request for an actual sound test. We did not do that, but we did look at a product that has certain factory laboratory sound absorption properties that we noted when we selected this material. And if I can go a minute on to the lighting, what I tried to do with the lighting, of course, was making sure that the subject property's yard was adequately lit, so that operations can continue on the commercial side as well as security, without casting any light on the residential property. And I think that was accomplished by the selection of a light fixture in the appropriate light shield that casts light away from the adjacent residential property and only onto the commercial property. And the height is 14 feet, so that the illumination was being able to spread properly across the property. So that's how that's the idea with the lighting. So, and we did a computer simulated lumen diagram study, which is very commonly done in projects when lighting is being designed. I did hear one of the commissioners mention an actual light meter test. I mean, we can certainly do a light meter test, but we would have to mock up. We would have to buy and mock up all of the light fixtures that we propose to do that. So that's why it wasn't an actual light metering, because the lighting is not physically in place. This is designed and computer simulated. So I just wanted to state those issues, for the board.
Okay, so do you have a lighting engineer, or is Equity some? You do.
I do. Yes, we have a lighting engineer that is part of our practice. He is not able to be on the phone today because he's away on vacation. So, but we do have it, and this lighting scheme and the lighting fixtures was selected and designed by a lighting professional.
Okay. So, a lot of it again is sort of the glow of the place. Was one reason why we didn't want the fixtures to be mounted on poles. The idea would be that if it was mounted to the acoustical wall, that then the wall itself would function as the a major shield as opposed to just relying on the fixture shield, because then there's always the issue of sort of the glow from the
Well,
the
that's a
use.
good, that's a good comment. There, and I'm making a note of that. We could possibly then look into maybe more of a sconce type light fixture that was below the proposed wall. I mean, we could look at that as well. I understand and I wasn't noted of that in the previous meetings, but I do hear it now, and we'll certainly take that into account.
Okay, and I just would say for me, and other commissioners feel free, you know, the issue about the 14-foot high acoustical wall was concern again about the prison look, right? If it's determined by the acoustical consultant that that's what you need, and this is permitted, because that's the other thing, we weren't really sure whether building code permitted such a tall wall or fence.
Right.
That's a different thing. But most of the time when we see these acoustical walls, the Acousta fence and some of these other things, they're not actually structural. They're more like drapery on top of a chain link fence, which was not something that we thought would work here. So we're looking at something that's much more of a structure, right?
Well, yeah, we can take, you know, we can look at it into a number of things. And of course, this was a product that afforded us with adequate and appropriate acoustic properties. There is, of course, the next step is, you know, how do you take it to maybe, you know, building an actual wall on the property? And we didn't think that might be a good idea either, because that would only enhance the confined like feel of the separation. So we was trying to strike a balance of a lighter project, so to speak, in terms of its dimension. It's 4 inches wide, and something that was maybe embellished with landscape and plantings and so forth. The original idea was similar to that, where we would have, we would introduce plantings, but the issue of having a space between the property line of the residential and commercial and the ability of someone to get onto the subject property from the residential side was certainly a concern, as Mr. Wright had stated earlier. So putting something directly on a property line was something that on a second go around we felt was probably not the right way to go. So that's how we arrived at the scheme that you see before you today.
So I understand the issue of the fear of people basically trespassing onto your own, and maybe, I get. What if instead, I'm just throwing out things because at this point I don't really think the proposal works, right? What if there was a low fence that indicated the property line, and behind it, let's say a low fence, then vegetation, then the acoustical wall. And I'm going to say it again, I'm not being an acoustical engineer, but Commissioner Sheta suggested that you also need planting to absorb the first hit of the sound, and then it goes to the acoustical wall. So maybe what we're talking about is planting on two sides of the wall, but the idea is to soften the apparent imprisonment.
No,
I didn't mention that. I didn't mean that we need the planting. I said if you put the acoustical fence like right behind the planting, it would be better than putting the acoustical fence like at the fence line. If you put it in the back, it's gonna filter out what's remaining after refraction, reflection. All that's gonna happen first, and then when the sound wave hit the fence, then it's gonna be weakened to a degree that it might be like easier for the acoustical fence to just make it dampen. But if the acoustical fence at the beginning, I believe the performance would be like different on the negative side.
May I make a comment, please? Just,
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's different approaches here. I mean, I think one of the concerns about the 14-foot fence on the property line maybe raised a prison concern, and so what I suggest, I sent photographs in showing the existing fence from the property owner's side of that major house there from the street. And so I think the approach I would like to try to work with the approach we have, because I think the existing fence, which has been there for 20 years, does have trees on it. It's on the property owner's line, not on our line, but it's their trees. There's a fence right next to it. It has a fair amount of vegetation. I would, just prefer not to rip up the fence and trees right on the property line, pull the wall back, which we've done. The 8 feet matches the fence there, plus the prior BSA plans approved 8 feet. So that's the zoning calculation there. And I think we believe, and the landscape architect is on there, that we then can create a landscaping area between the two. We have access. There is some, the landscaping plan shows some details about high, something that can be tall, and he can talk about it more. But by having the existing fence stay where it is, which the property owners have been seeing for 20 years and seems to have some attractiveness to it, put the wall back 5 feet where we've designed it now. That's a buffer, and then create a taller landscape buffer between that. You've got the existing fence, the 5-foot buffer, and the
Right.
acoustic wall. I think between the three of them, it does a fairly decent job of protecting the neighbors, and it doesn't eat up too much of our space, so we can still operate.
So Mr. Wright, let me just, the first part of it is, without an acoustical analysis, I don't know that the 8 feet of anything is adequate. That's the first part of it. The second, because we need an acoustical analysis, and I described the source of noise is very significant. It's not just, kids playing in the yard. This is very, very significant, loud crashing sounds. The next part of it is the line of sight from the windows to what's going on in the parking area is not going to be obstructed by this 8-foot fence. The next part of it is, I don't know if you've done any gardening, but if you try, I'm trying to imagine how you deal with planting that starts to grow significantly when there's no place to put your body. So 5 feet is, and besides that, the planting, which is supposed to be a dense buffer, right? It's supposed to be, say, arbor vitae that is planted, staggered, and it's supposed to be growing with a big tree ball with spread. It's 5 feet wide. That's not nearly enough for the spread of a tree. And once the trees spread, it's not physically possible for a worker to get in there to take care of these trees. So I just don't even understand the concept. And if Mr. Fontaine wants to show us an example of having done something like this, that'd be different, but it's just not believable to me.
Chris,
Well,
this is Kevin. Can I weigh in
Yes.
on the acoustic side and kind of rope some of these things together? So I listened to the board earlier, and have, and as Jim and I also discussed pretty much precisely what the chair and vice chair had discussed in terms of the line of sight, the noises that emanate from trucks, and this is, so I want to kind of separate the seeker process and the flaws from, in terms of that procedure, and what the board tries to do, which is kind of apply practical concerns to these scenarios. And so on the seeker side, the technical memorandum basically screens out based off of thresholds produced by the traffic. So that doesn't arise to the concerns and issues, Chair, that you identified related to pressure brakes, backup warning noises, stopping, the trucks when they pull in and accelerate up to the curb. And these are certainly the types of things that would have to be evaluated and measured. And so, although Equity is not an acoustic consultant per se, we do the monitoring, we do the evaluation, and we do specialized types of analysis that would help to achieve a notion of how much sound would have to be attenuated here. And then I think it would be a balance between the landscape architect and an acoustic consultant constructing something that's aesthetically appropriate and provides the attenuation of the noise that's required. Now, one of the components that I want you to all balance in your consideration here is in terms of this notion of a prison wall. Your view to Rockaway Boulevard's not so attractive. So I think there's a way to balance two concerns at once. One is putting up an attractive barrier that maybe, where its facade is has arborvitae or ivy and the concern, as I've heard repeatedly, Chair, is I used to run a landscape architecture group. And so when I hear you refer to the constructability, the maintenance and the plantability, and I hear it over and over again, I'm with you 100%. So we need to demonstrate a type of planting system that will work in this space spatially that allows for maintenance. But I would say I would allow some flexibility in terms of this notion of a wall, because I think in some ways this wall would provide, even at great heights, if properly done, would provide a great benefit in terms of screening daytime noise from Rockaway Boulevard as well as the operations. And so what we're going to have to do is basically model the parking lot traffic based off of the number of cars and the impulse noises that would be produced. And then we would have to develop a system here. And what I would discuss with the architect potentially in terms of the barrier is something that that maybe rises to 8 or 10 feet and then has an angled wall attachment that would allow to deflect noise, but would basically still allow more air in. So rather than another 4 feet, you cantilever an angle that towards the parking lot, and you would be able to capture and deflect some of that noise. And one of the things that Commissioner Cheta indicated was his concern about the absorption properties or the bouncing of noise. Well, that would be something that an acoustic consultant could weigh in as well. And we would recommend some applique or material that would properly absorb and would not allow bounce. So I think we can respond to your concerns with a study that shows the attenuation that's needed and a barrier system that meets the aesthetic requirements that actually at the end of the day may result in a real benefit to the neighbors in terms of shielding the parking lot and the ambient road noise from Rockaway Boulevard. And I think we're almost there. And I think you really provided the board provided the groundwork on precisely what we should be looking at in this parking lot. So I mean, I'm very clear what has to be done because I am as well. I think hearing what the board had to say today was extremely helpful to getting us to provide the solution that would make this work properly for all parties.
Excellent.
I just want to say, having been to the site, I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the green, dense green that has grown over the fence, and the planting is from the neighbor's side, which has resulted in kind of covering the fence up. And there are big trees also right next to it. So I would be sympathetic towards preserving those. And if more green can be added, I think more green should be added to this, where there is and with the acoustic fence, I would not want. I mean, yes, we can tear the fence down and build a new one, but it will take a while for that fence to again get green again in the way it is now. It worked hard for 20 years to get there. So that's my sense of it.
Okay. So, but I think Mr. Williams and Mr. Barbagallo have have their task set and they know what needs to be done in order to facilitate this property owner's ability to function, right, to do what it wants to do, and also to not impose on the neighbor. Commissioner Sheta has his hand up, and Tracy Benke is appearing, so I'm assuming she would like to speak. Okay, Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Kevin actually laid out like a feasible plan to look at the noise. I'm wondering if the premises is in operation right now, if it's possible to like perform some field measurements. It's not.
No,
Okay.
the tenants are gone. They left at the end of last month.
Oh.
Okay, I was thinking about actual measurements for like a truck on the premises, pushing the gas pedal all the way, making like really real world noise and taking some measurements and getting some numbers on the noise side.
Yeah, Commissioner Kevin again. So yeah, I mean, I that would have been the best case scenario. We certainly would have done it if it was in operation. I think what we'll try to do is to provide some similar readings and also provide some substantive backup related to truck related noise in a situation like this. And I think we can do that to the best that we can to give you a conservative assessment to match the type of movements that are here. We'll be very, sensitive to that. I know that I have a lot of data on the similar types of trucks. Obviously, the operational parameters here in terms of pulling up and backing out are a little bit different, but we'll try to do the best we can to get as close to reality as possible.
There should be actually, because this type of use is
very common.
That you could be able to go to another version of this same business.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the first way that we'll look at it. Absolutely. I think that's a reasonable way to approach it, and the simplest.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. Tracy, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on what Kevin said regarding the tech memo. I could send that to DOT. Initially, we didn't send it because, as he said, the thresholds were low compared to what was approved originally. But since DEP will ultimately be looking, I'd like to have them look at once this new study is done. And we could have them look at the noise and the air quality in the new study all together. And they may be looking for DOT to confirm the mobile source analysis as well. So I'm going to send that to DOT right away to get that started. And then I'll wait and get the new study, if that sounds like a plan.
Good. Does that make sense, Mr. Williams?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. Any other comments? Let's hear from the public then, if there is anyone calling in on this.
This item is 12295BZ, 15265 Rockaway Boulevard, Queens. Webinar ID number is 996-7120-2212. Call-in number is 646-558-8656. And you have a passcode, which is 816971.
I don't know what, I have to say, I don't know what that passcode is for. Maybe Kurt could explain.
It's the call-in thing, right?
No, when you call in, you dial the ID number 996-7120-2212 #. I've never used that
But if
passcode.
a member of the public calls in using Zoom, they might need it. So we just have it just in case.
In case. Okay.
And just so you know, I did send a copy of the wall to the neighbors as the board requested. So I did send it to them and notified them of this hearing. The neighbors that were, 2 hearings ago, I sent it to everybody. And then the wall proposal I sent to the people who were abutting the parking lot. So and you have copies of all that.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, but now you're going to have another design concept that's put together between among Mr. Williams and Mr. Barbagallo, and an acoustical consultant, right? So the proposal may be completely different. So
I can send that to the same neighbors again. I'm just
Okay.
was pointed out that these people did get notices
Right.
that they
Yes.
chose not to show up, but I can send whatever the new proposal is to the same people who abut there's 4 property owners who abut the parking lot, and I gave them a
Yeah.
letter. You have it saying you can contact me,
Okay.
contact the
All
board.
right, so maybe the way that we deal with this is all submissions that are made to us, you should give a copy to the neighbors so they're aware that this is going on in case it's very technical and there's not a lot of people other than wonks like us who will be able to understand it. So that might be a little too much, but nonetheless, you should be advising them that this is ongoing and that there are proposals for.
Yeah, they all got 2 hearing notices so far, so I think they have a sense of it.
Okay. So I don't see, I see 2 phone numbers in our kind of waiting room. Last 3 digits 463 and last 3 digits 661. If you would like to speak on this application,
I can.
dial
463 is James Heineman, who works for Kevin.
Yeah, one of them is Jim's. He's been
And what's
stuck
the
in
other
the
number?
lobby.
What's the other number, Chair?
661
What?
661.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so the person with last 3 digits 661, if you would like to speak on this application, please press *9. And it raises your hand, and then we know that you want to be admitted. Otherwise, in the meantime, we can talk about how much time you need to do your work.
Kevin, Joe, what do you think?
30 days. I mean, we can.
Yeah, I would.
Work with Joe,
I would
think.
say we need. I think we need 30 days. I think we would need it to do the appropriate studies.
And then bear in mind that we would want to get, that we don't want to spin the board's wheels without it being technically reviewed, right? So,
Right, we want a fully baked when we.
Yeah. So Tracy, maybe you can add
Right,
to
you
that.
can please submit it as soon as it's ready and we could get that started.
Okay,
That's really
so
the gist of the response is this proposal is to get this into you as soon as I can to have the next hearing.
No, let's go back to reality. I don't like to adjourn cases because they're not ready, okay? So first, you're needing to do a study, and let's just say you started tomorrow, you would need 30 days for you to conduct this study, right?
Yes.
Is that correct? So then, now you've conducted the study, now you submit the results of your study, which makes a suggestion about the amount of attenuation necessary. You submit the results of that study immediately to Tracy, who then forwards it to the various agencies, right? Back and forth with agencies. Simultaneously, you're coming up with a design solution where you're needing to research materials and to test out the materials against your proposed attenuation program, right? That's more than 30 days.
And those selections would, for some duration, be running on a parallel path while we are conducting the study based on info that we may know that we don't know if we don't have to wait for the full-blown results to at least get some designs in the work that would be appropriate. So there is some overlap in time, but I do not want to come back with a solution that's not fully baked.
There you go. So what if we said we double the time? We say 60 days to submit. Does that sound like enough? Because you also need to submit drawings, right? And with details. So the details are detail sections through your approach. And in terms of the planting bed for your landscape architect, in terms of the planting bed, we want to see details through the planting beds to make sure that there are proper curves, there's an adequate depth for the root balls and all of that kind of stuff, okay?
Correct, yes.
Chair, it's Kevin. What I would also add to that is we always know, just being practical here, in terms of scheduling, DEP always comes back with comments, right? No matter how good we are. So I would add, to the, it's a 30-day review period, and then we respond to comments. I would add at least 15 days. So if we, if we're going to do 30 plus 30 plus 15, I mean, just to be realistic. And even that is, that's with everything going correctly. I think is a,
All right. So actually what I'm going to do, because I don't know if our schedule can accommodate earlier anyway,
yeah,
90 days to submit would allow back and forth and adjustments to the design if you have a different response from DEP about how you did your modeling. Right? That good? Okay.
Yeah, Chris, I don't know how that works for you, but I'm just being realistic on the time frame it takes of agency.
I know we gotta do this right. It's just there's nobody there now. They're not getting any rent, so it's a bit of an issue. So I'm trying to be time sensitive, but I want this done correctly as well. But that's my concern. It's their tenant's gone, so they're not getting rent. So I'd like to try to move this.
But Mr. Wright, I just want to say though that had we had this conversation with all these consultants at the last hearing, or even the one before, we'd have been further along. So not coming prepared actually really slows you down, because then we can't assign you another hearing date for 3 more months because we have a full hearing schedule. So I would say being prepared, allowing everybody to really respond. Could be that we're so impressed with the results, right, Mr. Williams? We're so impressed with the results that we're like, yay, good to go.
I'm waiting for that, Chair, because we've been through a bunch of these. So if there's one goal I have, it's to please the board in such a manner. Absolutely.
Madam Chair, I have an additional suggestion. Given that they'll be back and forth and whatever the result that comes out to be, wondering if it would be helpful for the applicant in their statement also kind of state how they came to how the conclusion was achieved, because that will rule out all the options that we would think of. And you could say, we looked through all these iterations and went back and forth, and this is what was recommended based on the experts at our end and DEP and DOT and vice versa. And this is what we are proposing. And, and if this way, at least we have a sense of how the problem has been handled and how it has moved forward.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can pretty much outline the basis of design. We can note some of the avenues we went down to get to where we were when we finally present. We can note why it worked, why we thought of it, why we discovered that we could not go that direction, and give a summary of how we ended up with the proposed design when it's fully baked. That makes perfect sense.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to add is in listening to the hearing the last time, we had discussed landscaping along 132nd Street for 2 reasons. One is because that's the residential block. And for 2, as a way to ensure that there would be no use of that curb cut in the future for trucks to enter from 132nd Street, which is forbidden. And the drawings don't show any landscaping on 132nd. It's only bordering the house. So
we'll add that as part of the analysis. And just in terms of curb cut, for some reason back in '99, the BSA said preserve it. I'm not sure why. I sent a picture saying it's there, but we don't use it because the fence doesn't have a gate there, and we have no intention of using it. So I just want to clarify that because it's there. The BSA.
No, Mr. Wright, you were instructed at the last hearing to take out the curb cut, and you agreed to take out the curb cut and landscape 132nd. So I would recommend, in the interest of not having one hearing after the next and accomplishing what Mr. Williams would really like to accomplish, listen to the hearing and the review session and don't leave anything out that we discussed. because by leaving it out, all you hear is the commissioners say, we told you to do this thing. Where's this thing? Okay?
Okay.
Right. And, in addition to the planting on site, I also would say you can put another street tree right where the curb cut is. This will further give the board and the community the assurance that that is a residential street with all the street trees.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
And so, and then just to reiterate the question about the lighting, ideally, the solution of the acoustical barrier will become the structure for the lighting for a wall sconce. And I know Mr. Barbagallo mentioned that he would look at that. So just,
Yeah.
I want to make sure that it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, because we are really concerned about the light spread and
Yes.
the light flow. Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah, so we'll look at that
Every-
in context of the next design, certainly.
Okay, great. I appreciate everyone's participation. Thank you for joining this hearing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, next item, 4297 BZ, 9320 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
I don't know, there's again, I don't see Mr. Mitzner in the waiting room.
He's a 917, I think, cell number.
Can someone maybe email, text Mr. Mitzner?
He's there.
Oh, he is? There we go. Okay. State your name when you can hear us, Mr. Mitzner. He was there.
There he is
There he
again. Marvin, unmute, please. Mr. Mitzner, could you unmute?
Can you hear us? Please state your name, Mr. Mitzner. He's unmuted.
Can you hear
There we
me?
go.
Yeah.
We can hear you. Great. State your name, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Oh, God almighty.
We can hear you, Mr. Mitzner. State your name. And turn off your YouTube video. in
Hello?
case that's- Yes, we can hear you.
I was fine before. I can't hear anything. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, fine. Good morning, Madam Commissioners,
So,
Madam Chair and Commissioners.
let me, Mr. Mitzner, I apologize. I have to stop you for a second. I have to swear you in.
Okay,
Okay. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board in response to the board member questions?
yes, I do.
Okay, please proceed. Sorry.
Okay, so first, Madam Chair, your comments on the piecemeal submission is duly noted. And we'll avoid doing that, but we felt it was important to get information as it came in after the submission date. And that's why we submitted some of the other material.
I mean, you know what? In future, if something like that happens, it would be very helpful if your cover letter explained what you're submitting and why you're submitting it after the initial submission. Because what happens is we have a cover letter that's old and we're reading it and it doesn't have all the attachments. And then we have a cover letter that's new and we're reading it and it doesn't have all the attachments. And then we're not really sure what we're supposed to be reading. If your letter could be more descriptive and explanatory in terms of, you know, why I'm submitting this late, what came that was promised at the earlier submission. Okay.
Understood. Now, there was a comment about the street trees, now a submission of a master plan or a tree planting key plan. And I will note that those red circles around the tree pits are the locations where new trees have been planted. Those
Oh,
are
they
the tree pits that were empty. They have been planted. Those pits are the ones that were empty but now have trees in them, and the other locations had trees, and those remain.
Okay.
Okay, the second issue you raised was about, once again, about the red box and the ADA compliance of it, of the ramp. The ramp and the landing beyond the ramp is ADA compliant. We submitted a letter from an architect attesting to that. We also have a drawing that we submitted which contains a detail of that area showing the 5-foot landing area beyond the ramp. And
Wait,
also,
sorry. You said you submitted a new drawing?
we submitted,
That was in the August submission?
that was in the early submission, that's correct.
It was in the August submission.
That's correct.
August submission. No, but wait a second. Our prior hearing. Oh, so there was a
There's a submission, there is a document, a plan drawing identified.
I don't see it in August submission, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
I do not see it in the August submission. I did look for it.
It's PH 101.
No.
It was in September.
August 5th submission only has a grading plan.
Oh,
Yeah, this is the only plan in August 5th submission.
yes.
Oh, sorry. I thought it's August.
This was a plan that was submitted, it was the May 19th submission. I apologize.
Oh, but that's prior to the last hearing.
That's right.
So the prior to the reason that I brought this up in the first place was because the May drawing, which is what we're talking about at that hearing, indicated that the red box was too close to the, I have May 18th, I'm not sure even which one this is. The red
Drawing
box was,
A100.
101.
I mean, this came up, I'm just looking for the drawing now here. So that was the May 11th submission?
Yes, and drawing A103. But yes, it does show the ADA access ramp and it does show the existing red box. But our concern was the pinch point between the ADA access ramp where it meets the walkway, columned walkway, and the placement of the red box. That distance
Is very small.
is not 3 foot wide. For someone who is coming along that walkway from, let's say, not from the street side, but from the parking lot side, and will not be able to access it.
And so that was when your architect submitted that letter certifying that it was acceptable. Maybe it's acceptable in real life, but the drawing doesn't show it as being acceptable. It looks like from the drawing, you've got maybe 2 feet between those two things. And so the drawing doesn't represent real life.
So are you talking about the distance from the red box to the splay of the ramp?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And I would also say the distance between the bollards, that right at the entrance, I just noticed it. That also needs to be ADA accessible. The distance between the bollards, I'm not sure is 3 foot wide.
No, they are because.
Okay,
well,
if so,
visually, I can
please
tell you,
measure. If
we'll
so,
take it.
then just indicate that in the plan.
Fine, okay. We will do that.
So that was why I was surprised not to have gotten a resubmission of the drawings to show that the distances that we're talking about meet ADA requirements, as opposed to just getting a letter from the architect promising it's fine. And I think that it's field conditions is the issue, because the photograph that you submitted does look like the red box is pulled away from the ramp, but the drawings don't support that.
Mhm.
What we will do is we'll take a closer look at that and supply those drawings.
Okay.
Okay. Next issue relates to the lighting, and as we mentioned in our letter submission, Walgreens is doing a photometric study to figure out just what the proper solution is. They've tried to get shields for the existing light, but were unable to do that. So in lieu of that, they are looking at either lowering the pole or creating a new system of lighting. And that project is still in works.
Okay. You mean they no longer manufacture the shields? Is that what the issue is?
The manufacturer of the pole no longer has the shields that go onto the poles, and they're not manufacturing the new ones. So we have to find either a jury rig system or a new system that'll work. Okay. But Walgreens has committed to doing a photometric study to identify the proper solution.
Okay.
Now, in terms of the drainage, you are correct in pointing out that we've had quite a bit of rain recently. Once we cleaned out those drainage, there's been no problem with flooding as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know. And so I think that was the real issue, was that the drains hadn't been cleaned out in a while.
Okay, good.
In terms of, Commissioner Otley Brown mentioned signage. In terms of signage, this is the same signage that was approved in the original variance grant. So that we haven't, what we've shown in the drawings is consistent with the prior grant, and we haven't changed anything. So to the extent that it's beyond what currently is permitted in the C13 district, which didn't exist at the time of the grant because this was in a residential zone, then we just want that condition continued for this extension of term.
Do you have any documentation that shows that that was an acceptable? That's confusing. It's a 1998.
Well, when this it was in 97. We have the original drawings that we can supply.
That shows that it was more than 50
But this
feet of
is the same
illuminated.
signage that was approved in the original grant.
Well, we'd need to look at what was actually permitted. Commissioner Otley Brown, did you want to speak?
I think it would be helpful if they give us the drawings from the original grant. And I guess if it's mentioned in the resolution, they should highlight that as well.
Okay.
I'm looking at the previously approved original drawing, and it's a little difficult to read it, but the Astoria Boulevard frontage was allowed to have total signage of 84 square feet, I think.
Of what though?
Total, or just
No,
on
but-
Astoria Boulevard.
No, but this is illuminated signage.
Not all of it is illuminated though.
Right, but your form says it's all illuminated. That's what my question is. What portion of it is illuminated? Is it over 50 square feet per frontage?
Well, I will tell you that based upon the drawings that we submitted, the Walgreens sign itself, just the Walgreens name itself, is approximately 60 square feet. So on the current C13 zone, it would be over the 50 square foot limit. But it's the same sign that was approved in the original grant, right? So that, and in the original grant, this was not a C13 zone, it was a residential zone, so there were no sign standards as such. And so what was approved in the original grant is what we're permitted to maintain.
Because what I have is 93 square feet total and illuminated on 94th Street and 92 square feet total and illuminated on Astoria Boulevard. That's what I have. And that was, the last time it was addressed was May.
So you need to go back and look at this more carefully. And by the way, if the dimensions today are 60 square feet, the sign might have been measured differently in the original application. And so you need to see how that was broken down in the original application.
We'll take a
Because
closer look at it.
Sorry?
We'll take a closer look at it.
Okay, good. Because 60 square feet is so close to 50, it sounds like somebody measured the sign a little differently. Like there were times when you took a box and you put all the letters in a box. And then there were other times when you took a box and then you went down for the apostrophe or something like that, or for each little shape in the letters. And that's what they measured. So it really has to do with kind of DOB habit at the time.
Understood, right. Okay, we'll take a closer look, as we said.
Okay, thank you.
The other issue was, I think Commissioner Shedis mentioned about the violation receipts that we submitted. We did submit 2 pages, but they're different receipt numbers for different violations. So if you look at that carefully, you'll see the separate receipt numbers.
Thank you.
I just have, so there aren't any other violations outstanding.
Pardon?
There's no violations.
There's no
outstanding.
violations outstanding, that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great. All right then, so.
And the trash container thing you said?
Oh yeah, the trash is kept inside that area that we show in the photograph that we submitted until time for pickup, and then it's brought outside.
Gotcha. So it's not, as Commissioner Sheta suggested might happen, brought out in the morning and left there.
No, it's not
Until-
left.
The way it's described in the submission, it did say that except on the day for the pickup. So it gave me the impression that they are talking about the entire day. So inserting language like that makes you understand that on the entire day for the pickup, we have the right to leave it out. What I meant is, I'm okay with during the time for the pickup, like 15 minutes before, even half an hour before, and like immediately after the pickup, just put it inside. And I wanted to make sure that this is going to be the case.
Understood.
Thank you.
And so I'm going to make that a condition for future. Okay. Okay. All right, let's go to the public. Any other comments from commissioners? Let's go to the public.
Okay, the application with,
Go
the
ahead.
application we're discussing is 4297 BZ, 9320 Astoria Boulevard, Queens.
Okay, and if you want to speak on this, it's phone number 646-558-8656. And the pass to enter the Zoom hearing is 996-7120-2212 #. Okay. I don't see anyone new in the hearing other than that one with the last 3 digits, 661. If that person would like to speak, please press the *9. Okay, so Mr. Mitzner, how much time to respond to this? You're going to need a little bit of extra time for the photometric study, right?
Yeah, that's the one issue that may take a little more time. So we'll be looking at a submission in about 60 days.
Okay. Great, okay. All right then, I don't see anyone. The person with that phone number dropped out, I think, right? Yeah, okay. All right, thank you
Okay.
very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for calling in, Mr. Mitzner. So we're gonna take a 10-minute break, back at 12:20, okay?
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody? We have Commissioner Shabeta? Yeah, we have him.
Here.
Okay. Let's roll.
We're not live in.
Yeah, live on YouTube, recording.
Go?
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty, we are back on the record. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the public hearing for October 19, 2020, 10 a.m. session. The next item is item number 165597BZ 7636 164th Street, Queens. So this is, I'm not sure, Fayan or?
Yeah, she's in.
Hi. Okay.
Speak when you can hear us. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Are you the only one joining?
Yes, I'm the only one.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, I do.
Go.
Okay, Fayan Baton from Sheldon Lobel PC for the applicant. We attended today's review session. I know the comments were minimal. The architect will update the landscaping plan to provide the amount of details for the landscaping as the site plan did. And I know that the applicant had repainted the parking spots, but in the concerns regarding the bollards, we'll put up a temporary, we'll put up some sort of bollard for those spots, which I believe were 22, 14, and 7, just the ones that don't have the car stops, the wheel stops, just to prevent them from going over the property line, even though they were repainted.
Okay, so any other comments from commissioners? So I would like to just go to the public then.
So this is application number 5597BZ 7636 164th Street, Queens. The Zoom webinar ID is 996-7120-2212. The call-in number is 646-558-8656.
Okay, we'll give it a second. And Ms. Baton, how much time do you think to actually install the bollards?
I mean, they did it pretty quickly for the wheel stops. And I think, from a quick Google search, I could find that you could sell bollards at Home Depot to try to get something to install. So I think we could do it pretty quickly. Maybe within the month, definitely within the month.
Okay, so third. What?
So then no asphalt, something about the asphalt? No asphalt then, right?
No. So the issue was that what was
Solid
suggested.
asphalt, right.
Yeah, by Commissioner Sean was.
Yes, my, my suggestion was that it's a little bit of a belts and suspenders kind of thing. Removing the asphalt will be more expensive and time consuming, and they may not be able to get it done immediately. While that should be a condition and that should be removed. In the meantime, before we close and vote, they should provide the bollard. So bollard should also be there and the asphalt should also be removed. But I recognize the asphalt removal cannot be achieved before our vote, and having a condition, it may take longer. So this is to make sure in between that time period, we have the bollards in place. Am I making it clear?
Yeah, I'll repeat because I'm going to make a motion now. Okay. So what I would like to do is make a motion to close, but in the 30 days that between now and the decision, assuming that we can actually put you on for a decision in 30 days, it'll be more or less 30 days. The bollards will be installed as directed, and then a condition to our decision would be that the asphalt is replaced with cement to match the site.
The applicant plans on doing that. It is costly right now at this point, and I believe there are permits involved, so it would take time to get the permits. So.
Ah, okay, really? You need a
I think
permit?
it's with DOT, I'm not sure, because they have to, that's what I was informed before, but yes, they know that it's marked on the plans anyway, that they would be removed.
Okay. Okay, and just a reminder that this is a 1141 extension of term, so we're limited to a term of 10 years under this, right? So, okay, so I would like to then make a motion to close.
Chair Perlmutter,
Aye.
Vice Chair Chanda,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Shabeta.
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Next item is 12013 BZ, 1815 Forest Avenue, Staten Island. This is Neil Weisbard.
we have him here. Okay. There are 3 other people in the waiting room, but I don't know if they're related.
Neighbors, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Weisbard, unmute yourself and speak when you can hear us and turn off your YouTube.
Hi, good
Hi.
afternoon. We also have Brian Spelaine, whose number starts with a 661.
No, he's okay. He's in.
Okay, and Chang Lin.
No, no sign of Chang Lin.
Okay, we may not need Chang. If we do, I can make sure he gets on. But
Okay,
Brian
Mr.
and I are ready to be sworn in.
Yeah, raise your right hand. Mr. Spillane, are you, can you speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, okay, I just want to make sure. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond only to board member questions?
I do.
Yes, I do.
Okay, please proceed, Mr. Weisberg.
All right. Hi, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Neil Weisbard on behalf of Spelaine, who operates a McDonald's at 1815 Forest Avenue. I listened to a review session and heard the board's comments. And after I discussed the comments, Brian, who's on, he is the owner. He would also like to address your board and clarify some things and also explain the operation of the restaurant. We did not abandon the 24 operation until September 29th, and there was reasons for that, which Brian can explain. But Brian and I spoke after review session, and he's agreed to change the hours from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That can't be done until November 2nd due to labor laws, and Brian can explain that. But we'll do that as soon as possible, and I believe November 2nd is the correct date. I understand the board's concerns. We did meet with the neighbors after the last hearing. We did present a proposal, and I would like to propose a way forward that we believe can work for everyone involved. There may have been some misunderstanding about the mitigation measures that the applicant is proposing. As shown on the drawings, BSA 3 and BSA 4, the applicant proposes to install a commercial grade acoustical barrier, not a Acoustablock fence, a serious commercial barrier. It will be 8 feet high, and it will be installed directly adjacent to the 2 neighbors who are most impacted and who have complained to the board. Also, there is definitely confusion on this, that the applicant proposes to install 5 15-foot high perennial white pine trees, and those are shown on BSA 4. The chair didn't reference this, and also Commissioner Otley Brown said that there were going to be shrubbery. That's not the case at all. We understand the neighbors' concerns. We proposed a acoustical barrier fence, which will cost in excess of $80,000, as well as these pine trees, which 5 of them, perennials, that are approximately $7,000 each. So
Wait, a perennial has no leaves in the wintertime.
well, it's a conifer, excuse me, a white pine. A white pine
It's
tree.
white pine.
So if you look at 004, there's a photograph of the tree that is proposed to be installed, which we believe will create a dense buffer for definitely for lighting and acoustic, but the acoustical barrier, industrial grade will take care of that. So
How do you know? Sorry. How do you know it will take care of that without an acoustical analysis and acoustical consultant? It's just guess.
Well, that's true. So what we would like to do, which is my next point, is request a 3-month adjournment. The applicant is willing, even prior to the board's approval, to install the fence, to install the trees, and to install the lighting that has not been installed yet, but under the computer analysis, will bring the zoom-ins down to 0 on the lot line. We believe that these mitigations will resolve the neighbors' concerns.
Based on what do you, sorry, Mr. Weisbart, Commissioner Otley Brown, go ahead.
I just have a question. When you install those white pines and they grow to maturity, there's going to be what looks to be about 7 feet to the lowest branches. What are you going to do about putting in a buffer from 0 to 7 feet? Because otherwise the sound is going to flow right through that bottom area and hit the fence.
The acoustical fence is designed to shield heavy mechanical equipment. That fence will be 8 feet high. Then the tree will begin above the 8 feet. And you're correct. We have no way of proving what this will do until it's installed. We can only.
Well, sorry, that's, you're doing this in an extremely unscientific manner. You're sort of guessing around that this choice and that choice instead of having it done scientifically with an acoustical consultant. And that was the direction at the last hearing. So I'm not getting this idea of giving you 3 months to try it out and then it doesn't work out. And then, by the way, are you going to be really spending the money on 15-foot high white pine? They're not cheap.
We understand.
Yeah.
So that's the point. The acoustical, we can hire acoustical professional, and if Chang,
They were here, by the way.
I might have to bring Chang on, but Chang researched and found a acoustical barrier that is supposed to prevent the noise. I am assuming.
Oh wait, sorry. Prevent what noise? How do you know what noise it's supposed to prevent? Having done no studies.
Well, I know what noise it's supposed to prevent. It's supposed to prevent the noise from the drive-through.
Yeah.
We know that acoustic blocks are sufficient, that they've worked well in other cases. This is many more times more buffering than an acoustic block fence. It's an actual sound barrier that is put on top of roofs typically to shield noise from mechanical equipment. So yes, we would love to not spend the money and say, get direction from your board. Yes, we like these measures, go spend the money.
No, but you're misunderstanding. I don't know why you're misunderstanding. We have acoustical consultants who do noise studies. Those noise studies indicate to the consultant the amount of buffering or remediation that needs to be conducted and what type, and as opposed to hit or miss, try this, try that, try that. We are not acoustical engineers. We are not going to give you direction and say, do this, that will cure the problem, because we rely on the scientists, all right? And so here we are suggesting.
Wait, can I step in here real quick, just to clarify something, because you might have to get Chang on. Is there was an acoustical engineering company here that was measuring sound about a month and a half ago. And I think Chang may have brought them in for this purpose.
We did. We have provided an acoustical sound study at prior hearings that explained the noise.
Who is Chang?
Chang is the architect, and yes, a sound study was submitted to your board already, giving the levels at the lot line.
But we're giving the levels at the lot line all the way up at the second floor window from which we hear all of that noise from videos. It didn't give those levels. It didn't tell us that you could hear people talking in the window, through the window, even the kitchen window of the neighbor on the ground floor. So the studies aren't accurately representing what's happening. And those sound studies were about the menu board, which is also inaccurate because we could hear the menu board ordering through all the way to the second floor. So that's
again,
not the same thing as
again,
an acoustical engineer.
So we could get it, so we can have, we did do a study. We can have our study revised. I don't know if we can, we'd have to get permission to go on the neighbor's property if you really want us to measure at that window, or if you permit us to analyze from the point of the lot line and what it should be anticipated at the window. But we can provide those figures. We can provide that to the commercial grade acoustical barrier company, who can in turn say, yes, our fences will buffer the sound that's anticipated.
So let's try this again. There are a few companies that we've worked with. I don't know about the person who did your acoustical.
Ceramic.
Okay, so, and there are companies that we work with who work on gyms all the time. And those companies go to the gyms, take the measurements, and based on what they're learning from the noise data, they make recommendations about how to mitigate the noise. We need you to do that, as opposed, and we need you to. Yes,
will you? Let her finish, Brian.
Okay. Okay.
So we need you to do that. We need you to do it quickly. So no, not 3 months for more torture of the neighbors, because now you're telling us for whatever kind of labor law reasons, you can't even reduce the hours further. And so what we've been seeing is.
Well, we thought that would be, I hear what you're saying, but we're not trying to torture them. We've met with the neighbors. We are trying to do the right thing. The garbage truck issues, yes, 2 times the truck came after 10 p.m., which is our hours that we were supposed to do trash. But I'm going to leave that aside. We have not been ignoring the neighbors. We've met them. I've been in correspondence with them many times. We were believing that if we installed this stuff immediately, that it would take care of the problems. Let us put the fence in. Let us put the trees in. I do hear your point, and I think it's a valid point, and I do agree with it, that, okay, we could spend more money. We'll have the sound study. We'll give that sound study to the acoustical barrier company. They'll confirm, yes, of course, our fences can take care of this low noise, ambient noise. Whatever that level is.
Not an ambient.
So what the BSA is asking for is for us to use the acoustical engineers that they've had experience with. So whatever those acoustical engineers suggest.
Stop, please.
Okay.
No, we're not asking that. We're not even holding you from going ahead and putting the fence that you want to put in. We're asking you to resolve issues that neighbors frequently complained of. That's what we're asking for.
All I'm asking
I'm muting you. I'm muting Mr. Spelaine because he cannot speak out of turn. Mr. Commissioner Sheta, please complete your sentence.
Yes, we're not asking you to use any specific consultants, no matter what. What we're asking you is to resolve issues that neighbors are complaining about for months now. That's what we're asking. We're not holding you from going ahead and putting the fence or whatever sound barrier you want to put. You could go ahead and do it now, right now, while we're speaking. What we're asking you again is to come up with a solution and implement it.
You're breaking up.
Rami is a very good consultant, and they work with us on many gyms as well.
So yes, so I think that is the right approach at this point, is that right away, we have Sarami update their study, tell us how they can get to the rear window and at the rear lot line, Mr. O'Connor's window. We'll present them with the acoustical barrier that we're proposing to install. We will see if they can run a calculation that says if this barrier is installed, this will be the decibel level at the lot line, and this will be with the fence, and this will be the decibel level at that window. We'll also tell them that we'll give them the specs of the trees that we're providing and see if that provides any sound buffering as well.
Trees are not factored in mitigating noise. Trees are out of the equation. Mitigation of noise should be through the sound barrier or the acoustical fencing.
Well, my concern is that if we need to, well, I don't know the levels, but if the second floor window is at 12 feet, then we're installing a 14-foot high fence. I don't think anybody wants that, but I could be wrong. But I understand your direction and we'll get on that right away.
Okay, so just to sort of capture this, Cerami does the test, does the analysis based on actual field conditions, okay? And Mr. O'Connor can provide lots of videos, which are already in the record, to show actual field conditions, how loud it is. We basically have a very good idea, right? And what the sensitive receptors are. We have a very good idea of the receptors. So you should be sharing all of that data with Cerami, and then they should come up with a proposal, and then the proposal should be presented to the neighbors who are most affected by this proposal. You know, this issue of the trees, and I always talk about trees as a way to help with the buffering, but also to mitigate issues to do with fumes from cars, and also to improve the aesthetics of the sound barriers, which are usually not very much to look at. So that's the reason always for the planting. It's a multiple purposes. And then your landscape architect also needs to respond to Commissioner Otley Brown's question. If you're planting these trees with very tall, naked trunks, then what's the proposal to deal with the aesthetic and possibly sound of the lower portion under 7 feet? That's why we usually talk about arbor vitae, because they grow fluffy all the way up. So when you're talking about a tree, a white pine that doesn't really have any leaf system until it's pretty high, you're missing that opportunity.
Well, we would rather install arborvitae. We were thinking we needed 14-foot high trees, so Mr. O'Connor has no concerns about lights flashing into his window.
Right. So, but no. But so there are other kinds of trees that are perennial, conifers that are fluffy from the bottom to a very tall top. If I just think top of my head, in Italy, the cypress trees, they grow to 40 feet, right? All the way from the bottom. What?
The Hamptons. In the Hamptons, there are loads of like 14-foot
Okay,
hedges.
so we'll talk about this with the landscaped architect. And I understand we'll have a dense type of vegetation that is aesthetically pleasing, so you don't see the acoustical barrier, metal acoustical barrier, and will also grow tall enough to prevent lights from going in his window.
Okay, there you go. It's true. There's all those privet hedges that are famously box hedges, like a labyrinth, where you can absolutely not know anything about what goes on behind, and they're super tall.
Right.
Right. Okay. Commissioner Sheta, do you?
I'm not a landscape architect or expert, but I would say if you want to give us the two choices, the arborvitae versus the white pine that you currently submitted, I understand that the white pine has a really long trunk without any leaf system. If you zoom up the pictures you submitted, there is an SUV next to the tree. It sounds like this is easy, 7-8 feet. So if you're willing to put something between the trees, shorter planting system between every 2 trees, that would be helpful. If not, and I have to choose between something that's really tall, up to 14 or 16 feet, or something that's short but with better aesthetics, I would select the first one, the current submission, because the appearance, the nice looking, gonna be from inside the McDonald property, while from the other side they are not gonna be able to see that. Probably they're gonna see the top portion of it. But I care more about the sound. I care more about the light, not the way it looks from inside McDonald's. So I'm in favor of something that's.
Mhm. So this is I care about how it looks from all sides, right? So both the impact on the neighbor and the appearance from the McDonald's side. The whole idea is to have these things not be eyesores, right? So anyway, let's leave this to the landscape architect to solve the problem as opposed to us being landscapers. I don't think any of us would probably do that well in the landscaping world. So, you know, we look at pictures, we see things in other locations that seems to work in other locations. So let's see what the landscaper can come up with, where the issue is not imposing any nuisance or any aesthetic, disagreeable aesthetics on the neighbors and also on the users of passerbys of McDonald's. Okay, just to make it brief.
On the sound side, it shouldn't be any theoretical analysis from now and going forward. Shouldn't be any time buying games from now and moving forward. If you wanna, your consultant, take a look at an option, I would believe that the best way to go is to install a test section and have them do field measurements to make sure whatever you're gonna implement is gonna work. If you wanna install the entire barrier or the entire system, it's up to you. But
no, we don't want to do
no
that.
more theoretical analysis.
Right.
We don't want to.
So I would say the measurements have to be actual field measurements, not modeled measurements. All right. I think that's the main thing. And if you're talking about a temporary solution, I don't really know what that is because you're
Do
buying.
you want measurements to his window? So we have to enter an access agreement with him?
Believe me, I'm sure that the neighbors would be open to measurements from their windows or even inside their houses, because you shouldn't have to have a closed window condition just because you live next door to a McDonald's. So yes, we're gonna be admitting them into the conversation shortly, and then you should be having a conversation with them about access, because without those
if the system is gonna work properly, if what you're proposing is gonna work properly, most likely you're not gonna need to measure all the way to their windows. The sound propagates according to physics laws. So if you measure sound intensity right behind the fence, probably 4 feet after, 6 feet after, who knows? Probably the conclusion of your consultant by then will be, we don't need to measure all the way at the window, and you're done. But you need to act.
Isn't that theoretical? I'm confused.
No. Let me interrupt right now.
No.
The sound consultant
you didn't get
is
it.
going. No, Mr. Commissioner Sheta, I just don't want to keep going with this. The sound consultant gets hired. The consultant does the measurements according to what the consultant believes is necessary. We are not sound consultants. We're not arborists. We're not landscapers. Please let the consultants do their work and do it properly and measure whatever amount they need. However, it cannot be theoretical. Whatever the measurements are must be field measurements, and the calculations for remediation based on those field measurements and based on known information about the materials that will be purchased. Okay, I don't want to have any more back and forth about this. Okay, so I'm going to now invite.
Well, before we invite the neighbors, I just want to make sure that when we come back, that we're finishing up the trash enclosure.
Yes. I know you don't want to move it. I'm saying move it. I don't want to hear about this.
Well, I'd like to ask the chair.
So it's Mr. Weisbard. Mr. Weisbard.
No, I'd like to speak about the trash enclosure.
I'm about to, Mr. Weisbard, I don't want to have a conversation with this. Your client comes to us asking for a special waiver.
Some commissioner said it doesn't need to be moved.
Would you, I'm going to mute you and not let you speak anymore. The instruction is move the trash enclosure to a commercial frontage, not to a residential one. All of these uses treat residents like they don't matter. Residents matter. They live here. And the trash enclosure should never have been located and should never be located on a residential property line. It's beyond disrespectful of the lives of people who live adjacent to these commercial uses. And as far as I'm concerned, no discussion. You must move it to something that's adjacent to commercial, so it reduces the impact of all of that crashing and banging. And that's why, I mean, it's just unconscionable.
But this
And
hearing is
I
a
don't wanna have
dialogue.
a discussion. I'm muting you right now because I do not want to have a discussion about it. It is your direction, okay? Now we move to, and as Commissioner Otley Brown pointed out, the longer you drag this out, the more things this board will learn about the inappropriateness of this use next to residents, and the more the board will push back. If you seriously want that to happen for your client, then I'm sorry, but listen to the advice of Commissioner Otley Brown and just get these things done, all right? So I'm going to allow to speak Mr. O'Connor, and I believe also Ms. Peralta is one of the people who's calling in about this. And then there's one other person whose phone number ends in 204. If that person would like to speak, please raise your hand and by hitting *9. That's the phone number 204. Hit *9 if you want to speak on this application. So Mr. O'Connor, if you can hear, please unmute yourself and state your name. And turn off your YouTube video if it's on.
To unmute on the telephone, please press *6.
So we also have phone number. And the person with phone number 204, please state your name. You unmute yourself. You just did. State your name so we can label you.
John O'Connor, 16 Westbrook Avenue.
Okay. So
Okay.
you come into both the YouTube.
My wife is on the my wife is on the other side.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Okay,
So what?
you'll have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, so we will do anything. We'll grant access, anything that we can do to get the science and get the acoustical analysis done. We'll be glad to do. I didn't hear anything about air analysis, and I'm not sure if that's going to come up, or is that something that's not going to be done?
Oh, that's a good point. We had asked, you're right. Yeah, we had asked for air quality studies and we didn't get that and they just ignored us. So that's the other thing for reminding us. Yes.
Moving the dumpster is something we would certainly recommend. And I think one of my neighbors is going to talk in a minute about some rats that come back, and that has been handled in the past. They've done a good job with that, but that's just another reason to move it. The sound is difficult. He said 2 times, but you know, the problem is we can't, when one, I'm not always here, and my neighbors complain, and 2, there are times I can't get fast enough to do a video. So it happens quite often that they come late. So please move that. That'd be a great thing. The problem we have now, and it has improved since the hours were cut down, obviously, but the problem is that the lot is still open. And what we encounter now are people coming into the lot beeping to get access to the closed drive-through. Now, again, I can't get a video because by the time it wakes me up and I come back, they've stopped the beep and they've moved on. But it does happen, and I think my neighbor will concur and say that same thing. So they've got to close access here. Otherwise, you're going to have people driving through all hours of the night. You know, it can be done. It's just a chain. Just close it off. There's no signage that says the drive-through was closed that I know of, and maybe they could comment to that. But I think that the customers should know that because that'll help as well. Mm-hmm. But we're happy with the progress the board has made. We're happy. I wouldn't characterize our relationship with McDonald's as open, and we've been in lockstep with this whole process. However, there has been communication, and we look forward to doing more. We just want to solve the issue. And I guess the other issue is there's going to be a change in the lighting. Is that correct?
Yes. So the lighting, okay. They're supposed to have been doing lighting studies, field studies.
Okay.
And so
great.
for pointing
So
that out.
from the 16 West perspective, anything they want to do, we'll do. We just want to solve it.
Okay, great.
And,
Thank you
that's
very
it.
much.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing us. Thanks.
So I just want to point out again to Mr. Weisbard, there were things that in our discussion now we left out from our review session, but there were comments about the lumen spread that's not being based on actual measurements and must be.
Well, it can't be. It hasn't been installed yet. We have to change the lighting to get it to 0. That's what we presented to you. It's a proposed scheme based on computer models. So that's the best we can do. These computer models show that by changing the lighting as proposed on the plans, that it'll produce 0 lumens at the lot line. There's no way we could do field studies without it being installed.
But isn't
Yeah, but
there already
your own submission. Go ahead, Chair.
First of all, isn't there lighting installed currently at the site?
Yes.
So we're
Well, why would
field,
I be gonna show, we gave you that drawing. It shows in excess of 0 lumens at the lot line. You gave us the instruction to revise it to provide 0 at the lot line. We have done that. We just haven't installed it yet.
But the drawings say existing light poles.
Well, the lumen diagram that shows 0 lumens is a revised lighting scheme that will produce 0 lumens at the lot line. It has not been installed.
But it says it's based on existing light pools. If my point is, if the light pools are there, why are you doing theoretical or computer model? If the lights
Because the
are
light
there,
poles will
go
be
measure it.
changed. The lighting will be changed to make sure we have 0 at the lot line. It's not the existing poles. There's going to be changes at a significant cost to this owner.
Mr. Weisbard.
So these are not the existing, you mean these are just existing from previous? They are not the final ones?
Correct. This is a proposal to get, we've done this before with this McDonald's company, that this is, in order to get 0 lumens at the lot line, you will have to do X, Y, and Z. That's what we're proposing to do.
So I think the biggest issue is the drawings are very unclear and they're inconsistent. That's what was said, right? We can't tell whether the poles are installed or proposed. You need to make sure that the drawings are very clear, that they say proposed or installed, okay? So in the meantime, though, you can install those lights that are claimed to be reducing those light spill. So by the next hearing, they're installed. Then you can take actual measurements and prove to us that we have 0 lighting on the site. So why don't you do that? And that would finish off the subject of lighting.
That's fine. And I just want to reiterate that we did not ignore the board's request. The reason of our last submission, and I thought it made it clear, that doing the mitigation measures, which were important to these 2 neighbors, was with a fence, the lighting, which is a significant cost, and the landscaping at over $130,000. We didn't ignore the air quality analysis. We were hoping that when everything was installed, if there was a compliance hearing, if there were still complaints, that we could address those. But we did not ignore the board's request, and I just want to make that clear. And Brian can explain that you're treating Brian and the Spelaine organization as though they're McDonald's. Spend 175, 180. Oh, you have to do a noise analysis? Okay, we did get a quote for that. That's another 9,000, just spend it. But when we believe the mitigation measures will resolve all Mr. Okada and Ms. DiBerardino's complaints. But I just we did not ignore the board's request.
Okay, well, when you come back and you don't give us what we asked for and you don't explain to, and you basically say we're not going to do it, it sounds like ignoring.
I didn't say that. I explained that we're trying.
Mr. Weisbard, can you stop interrupting when other people are speaking? You have to stop that. And so otherwise I will mute you and I'm just going to move on to everyone else and let them speak. But Commissioner Otley Brown made it very clear, if your client does a cost benefit analysis and determines that it's not worth spending the money in order to get this approval, it's a nice business decision, whichever way you go. But this is a business and businesses need to spend money, especially when there's a government agency from which you are asking special approval, demanding that behaviors change. So this defensive attitude that you're taking is not helping your client. And instead, you should be complying with all of our direction instead of dragging this out indefinitely. So if your client makes a decision that they don't want to spend the money, then that's the end of the application. And we just do not approve the drive-through, period, the end. And you go back to being an indoor restaurant to the extent that one can function like that at this moment in time. All right. So I don't want to hear any more arguments from you. And I certainly don't want to hear you ever again interrupt someone else who's speaking. All right, I'm going to move to Ms. Peralta, who is in. Please unmute yourself, either through Zoom or pressing *9 if that's the way you're in.
*6 on the telephone.
Sorry, *6. Ms. Peralta, unmute yourself, please. Can you hear? I'm asking her to unmute, but I don't think she's seeing me. There's also, there she goes. Okay, state your name when you can hear. Ms. Peralta?
Yes, hold on, please.
We can hear you. You can start speaking.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me? I apologize. I just clocked out from lunch. I'm at work. I didn't get to speak at the first hearing because I was at work. And I'm glad I'm able to speak now. As far as the McDonald's establishment, it's been a problem for a long time coming. I just have to say that the other night, I do have a dog, and the other night I could not let my dog out in the backyard anymore on his own because the other night I went back there and I kept him on the leash. For some reason, I don't know why I did that, but thank goodness I did because there was a rat in our backyard. And I know it's not from our yard because we don't have any garbage or food anywhere in our yard. Our garbage is in the cans. Good. Hold on. I have to plug in my phone. It's dying. Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, we can hear you.
Still hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I have one thing I do have to say is that the owner of this McDonald's, before this board hearing, my sister, Ann DeBaradino, and John O'Connor, my neighbor, sent several emails to them. I saved every single one, and before this board hearing, they never responded to one. They only started responding when they knew this board hearing was happening. As for the drive-through, it needs to go. I'm sorry, but it needs to go. It's an annoyance every day. I get up at 5:30 in the morning. Now my son works. He also gets up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work. And we need a good night's sleep. Not only us, but other people in the neighborhood. And there are kids that need to get up and start their schoolwork or whatever, but we need a good night's sleep. And the honking of the car horns because they're not being served quick enough, the intercom, the people hanging out in the parking lots because they think this is a hangout now, and blasting their music. I sent my sister is Ann DeBaradino, I sent her another video. I don't know if she was able to send it to the board, but they were out there 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock, blasting their music. Like it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon and this is a typical hangout spot. It's uncalled for and it needs to stop. As far as the owners, the owner, Brian, sent my sister an email. It was horrific. It was so condescending. It was hard that I never respond to the emails. I had to respond to it. All right, saying how the police department was so happy with their establishment and all the work that they did. It was horrible. As far as that drive-through goes, it needs to go. Now we have rats in the backyard, and I can't let my dog out in the back because of that. And this is not the first time with the rats. And they blamed a shed, my neighbor's shed, for the rats. It's not coming from our neighbor's shed. They are looking for a food source. And it's definitely not from our yard or John O'Connor's yard or any of the other yards.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Peralta.
I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry the way I sound, but this situation has had me so upset for a long time.
Appreciate it.
I mean, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. I'm sorry?
We appreciate all of the information you've been sending us and your testimony. Thank you. And thank you for taking time from work to call in. We do appreciate that you've done that.
You're welcome, and thank you for all your help with this situation. We really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good day.
You too. And there's Mrs. O'Connor. Would she like to speak? I assume Mrs. O'Connor. It's also a John O'Connor phone number. If she'd like to speak, please *6 to unmute yourself. There's also one person whose last 3 digits are 147, or maybe that's Mr. O'Connor as well. Is 147 Mr. O'Connor? No. If that person with last 3 digits 147 would like to speak on this case, the McDonald's, please press *9 to raise your hand and we'll let you in. There you go. Thank you. And then state your name when you can hear us. And unmute yourself with *6. *6 to unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay, this is Ann DiBeradino. I'm the 147.
Great. Thank you for calling.
Can you hear
Go
me?
ahead. Yes.
Okay, well, first of all, I do want to also confirm that any access that is required to my property or my home that is needed to implement these corrective measures is certainly granted. I have no issue. Just coordinate it with me, my sister, or my nephew, and McDonald's has full access, whatever they need to correct these measures. Secondly, I just want to say that because my sister saw the rat, I am going to have to hire an exterminator because I can't trust. I mean, my yard is very clean. I have no sheds. I have a tree in the corner. I have grass, maybe a few leaves, but my yard is, I would consider it very, very clean. And, now with the rat situation, it did run back under the fence back into McDonald's. I guess the lighting and seeing the dog maybe frightened it. But now I'm going to have to go through the expense of hiring an exterminator to protect my property. I can't trust that, it's not going to reappear or that more will come. So I will be doing that. I also want to mention that after the phone call with the McDonald's ownership and the attorney, John O'Connor and I put together a questionnaire and we distributed it to the other community members because it was very obvious, very evident that a lot of them never received the notice in the last hearing. And we received some feedback. One gentleman said that the lighting is so bright that he can read a book in his living room. So it's not just affecting, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's not just affecting John O'Connor and my household. It's affecting other members of the community. And, for some reason, those members choose not to call in. Now, this last one, John was kind enough, because I'm having printer problems, of printing the hearing information and distributing it to those people who did provide feedback. I don't know what it is, if they're concerned about exposure, but there are other community members that have voiced concerns about the garbage, that the noise from that garbage truck, and, you know, the lighting. It's just, you know, so I don't want the board to think that it's just us two. There are other households being affected by this. There was one other thing I wanted to, I'm sorry, I made a list. The lot has to be fenced off. If the decision is to keep the, it's not just occasional honking, but like, you know, John mentioned, my sister mentioned, you know, somebody honks, you go to the window, you're woken up now, you go to the window and they're gone. But the honking is enough to wake you up. But some people use it as a hangout. And we mentioned this to, during our last call with Neil and with the McDonald's ownership and Brian, that it's important that if you're going to minimize the drive-through hours of operation, then you need to fence it off. You need to do something. We have a Target down the street that I guess due to COVID hasn't opened. It's a brand new Target, but they have it nicely fenced in. Now, I know these things don't happen overnight, but you know, they have these structures and poles with chains in between them. You could put them at each opening just as a deterrent. And also, John noticed that there's no signs. Now, maybe we missed them, but I don't go over there. I don't buy McDonald's, and I haven't been over there. But there's no signs stating the new hours of operation. So that's also, people come in and they're expecting the McDonald's to be open as usual, and they're not. And there's no indication that they're closed. Some people just don't look, you know, if you're observant enough, I guess you could determine that it is closed. So it's very, very important.
Okay, understood.
I'm sorry, I'll end it. I'll end it. If, you know, if they're going to minimize the hours, it has to be blocked off to traffic. You know, and everything else has been covered. I want to thank the board for the consideration it's given to the residents. It's the first time in many, many, many years, I've lived here since 1976, that we felt that, you know, we're somehow being represented. We want McDonald's to thrive as a business. We don't want it to fail, but we also want to live a peaceful life. And, you know, that's all we're asking. So thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Thank you very much for calling in. We really appreciate your testimony and your
Okay.
information. Yeah, before Commissioner
I
Shonda,
just want to
a
know
second.
the address. I just want to know the address of the,
Okay.
that the applicant is calling from. That's all.
Not the applicant.
Me?
Sorry, yes, the speaker. The
Oh,
speaker.
I'm 12 Westbrook Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
I'm right next to John's house. John and I are neighbors, yes.
And you both share property lines with McDonald's, correct?
Yes, oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yes, okay. All right. So, what I would like to do, thank you very much, everybody, neighbors for calling in. I don't see anyone who hasn't spoken in our attendee room. I do believe we did we already invite everyone to speak? No, can you show the screen, Kurt, please, to invite people to speak who might not have? There we go. So this is case number 120-13BZ 1815 Forest Avenue in Staten Island about the McDonald's. If you would like to speak on this case and you haven't already, please dial the number on your screen, on your YouTube video screen. The number is 646-558-8656. And at the prompt, dial 996-7120-2212, #. And we'll look to see if you're trying to. So in the meantime, I would like to just say to the team that we are expecting air quality analyses, because again, this has to do with the revving of engines and so on, which we asked to be done previously and was not done. And we also asked, and I believe our environmental specialist, Tracy Benke, gave a protocol, a testing protocol for the sound and noise.
We have that, and we
Yeah.
have a proposal.
Yeah, and air quality. So those protocols were given, and so we were supposed to have gotten results. Ms. Bjorn, I'm going to mute people who are not going to speak anymore because there's a lot of background noise. So we still need to see that. And then we had also instructed at the last hearing that a system to close off the parking area and the driveway to the drive-through be provided. And so that wasn't done. So there does need to be a chain put up at the entrance to the drive-through during the off hours with a sign that says drive-through closed between the hours of X and X. And also to close off the parking area or to better. We don't need to see that. Also instructed. So to close off the parking area so that it would limit the late night hanging out behavior. So we need a proposal for how to deal with that. Okay, we don't need to talk about it now because we need to move on, but you do need to include that in your submission materials, and immediately the chain should go up in front of the drive-through after hours when it's closed, and a sign should be there that's clear that there's no drive-through opportunity during that time period. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Weisbard, we're gonna.
Am I still on mute? This is Brian, the owner.
No, you could go ahead.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't really get a chance to speak a whole lot. So we did, like Mr. Connor said, and Ann said, we did have a call with them, and we are more than willing to do everything that's needed. And I know you don't want to go any further and have the back and forth about trees and fence. The landscaper has given me a few other options, which to me look better, that go from ground to 15 feet, full arborvitae style, like you were saying, cypress tree type of things, that we can do. And we're more than willing to do it. As far as going from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., I have no problem with that. You said at the beginning that it was, I'm citing labor laws. I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I have to follow the labor laws, or the Department of Labor will come down on me. So I have to give 2 weeks notice to the people that work for me that I have to cut their hours. There's really, I don't, I'm really in a spot there where I don't know what to do. I mean, I'll do it, but I need the 2 weeks to November 2nd. I can have the managers sign off on their 2 months because they're salaried. I'm supposed to give them 2 months notice, which is what I did after the last hearing. So I am trying to make everyone happy, and I'm doing everything I can. The poles, if I have to put up chains, I'll do so. I did put up signs right on the drive-through speakers, and we put cones to say that the store was closed for 24 hours, and people drove over the cones, stole the cones, they ripped off the signs. They were upset that we're not open. I mean, we employ more than 50 people here, and it's 50 families that I'm affecting also, that are in my walls, that are part of this community also, that I'm trying to help them and help the neighbors too. And, you know, Mr. Connor and Ann said, you know, we're trying to work together, and we are. And that's what we did with that phone call. As far as the walls and the trees go, as long as I can get permits to do whatever we need to do, we'll move immediately. I'm more than willing to do this, but as you said, as the board, it's a business decision. We want to stay open, and we will spend the money. We need the permissions from the city on both sides. You know, I know the BSA will cooperate more than likely, and our neighbors will cooperate if, say, a field study needs to be done and we have to put some sort of measurement on their window. We'll do it.
Okay, good.
The drive-through is 65% of the business, and we can't survive without it. We'll be out of business. All those 50 families will be unemployed.
Mr. Spelaine, I have to interrupt you. We need to move on. You've heard what we need you to do, and so you will do those things. Otherwise, we cannot continue your drive-through. All right. So you've heard it.
We will.
Your council
We'll do
heard it. Consultants have heard it, and your neighbors have heard what you've agreed to do. So you just need to take care of this. And what I'm going to be doing is, because I don't want to kick this down the road 3 months, I'm going to be scheduling this for about 30 days for turnaround. So we get a progress. 30 days will include the November 2nd date, so that we find out that indeed you've reduced your hours from 7 till 9, and put up the chain to prevent people from coming into the drive-through with clear signage, etc. And that you've done all of those studies necessary. 30 days is plenty of time, so that you will come back to us with significant progress and no more complaints from neighbors. And there's so many ways to accomplish no more. We're not gonna have a conversation. No more complaints from neighbors. You can inform your hauling company not to pick up after 9 p.m. And not to pick up before 7 a.m. And that way we won't be getting videos of crashing sounds all at very odd hours at night. Okay, so we're not gonna have a conversation. I think everyone for calling in, everyone was very helpful and responsive, and we'll see you in approximately 30 days, okay? Thank you, everyone.
What is
This concludes
submission date?
this.
Mr. Weisbard,
30 days.
we'll be sending you the information. You're going to submit as quickly as you can. And we're going to be back here in approximately 30 days. So get started immediately on your work, and we'll send you the official submission date shortly, but don't wait. Start immediately. Okay?
Okay. This concludes the public hearing for October 19, 2020, 10 a.m. session. What time do you want to return? 2 o'clock?
2, yeah, 2. That's enough time, I think. Right, everyone? 2 o'clock?
Okay.